All right. Good evening and welcome to the February 2024 City Council regular hybrid meeting. I'm Mayor Salim Neese. This evening's hybrid City Council meeting is being brought to you by Zoom and is being broadcast on the city's YouTube channel. We welcome anyone wishing to watch the meeting live to join us in the city's YouTube channel via Zoom or at the Mercer Community and Event Center. Welcome to all and thanks for joining us tonight. Council members, please have your microphones turned on for the roll call. City Clerk Andrea Larson, please call the roll.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Councilmember Andral.
Here.
Councilmember Jacobson.
Here.
Mayor Neese.
Here.
Councilmember Reynolds.
Here.
Deputy Mayor Rosenbaum.
Here.
Councilmember Weicker has not arrived yet, and Councilmember Weinberg.
Here.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. We have a quorum present. Next, we have the Pledge of Allegiance. Council, if you've joined in council chambers, please stand and face the flag. If you've joined via Zoom, please mute and turn off your video to ensure the flag is visible. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. We now move to approval of tonight's agenda. There's going to be one change, and I'm going to make a motion to pull AB 6407, Arch Housing Trust Fund project approvals from the consent agenda and move it to a future council meeting. Is there a second?
Second.
I'll second it.
Okay, moved by Mayor Neese, seconded by Councilmember Jacobson. City Clerk, please call the roll.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Councilmember Jacobson.
Aye.
Councilmember Reynolds.
Aye.
Mayor Neese.
All right.
Councilmember Weinberg.
Aye.
Deputy Mayor Rosenbaum.
Aye.
And Councilmember Andral.
Aye.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Very good. Motion passes. Next, would anyone like to make a motion to approve the agenda as amended?
So moved. Second.
Okay, moved by Councilmember Jacobson, seconded by Councilmember Reynolds. City Clerk, please call the roll.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Mayor Neese.
Aye.
Councilmember Jacobson.
Aye.
Deputy Mayor Rosenbaum.
Aye.
Councilmember Andral.
Aye.
Councilmember Reynolds.
Aye.
And Councilmember Weinberg.
Aye.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. Motion passes. The agenda as amended is approved. Next up on the agenda, we have a study session on AB 6413, City Geographic Information System, GIS Products Presentation, for which we welcome Chief of Administration, Ali Speets, GIS Coordinator, Leah Lamas, and GIS Analyst, Matt Ringel. Welcome.
Good evening, City Council. I'm Ali Speets, Chief of Administration, and I am here just to introduce Leah and Matt, our GIS staff, who will be walking you through current GIS programming and show you some demos. We're really proud of the work that our GIS staff do every single day, and we want to make sure that it's noticed by all. So they'll have a short presentation for you and some demos, and then we'll have some time for questions. It's all you, Leah.
Thank you, Allie. Good evening, council members, mayor, and staff. My name is Leah Lamas. Along with my colleague, Matt Ringel, we're excited to present some of the city's GIS products, especially with some demos. Let me share my screen. Can everybody see my screen?
Not yet. There we go.
All right. Like I said, we're going to be demoing some of our GIS products tonight, so tonight's presentation will cover all of these topics listed on this slide. We will particularly be spending most of our time demoing and discussing some internal and external GIS products, which is number 4 and number 5 on the screen. And within those discussions, we will be doing some product demos as listed in the product demos box. So let's get started. So let's meet the GIS team. Well, here we are. We will be, so where can you find the GIS team as it relates to the city's org chart? This slide shows the different teams within the Administrative Services Department, which is the department that we are part of. It also includes City Clerk, Communications Manager, Human Resources. I am highlighting where GIS sits within this department. We are part of a team called Information and Geographic Services. And we have two distinct groups within that team, which is GIS and IT. A little bit of history of GIS in the city. GIS has been a service in the city since the early 90s. The image on the right shows the first GIS study session, which was actually in 1991. It was focused on bringing GIS to the planning department to assist in land use, zoning, and property mapping. The city then extended GIS capabilities for the Public Works Department, and the city mapped a lot of the city's utility network, water, sewer, storm assets, and at that time, all these milestones and efforts were shared with the council in consecutive years in 97, 98, and 2000. There was a big gap of sharing information with council. There was definitely a lot of changes. Technology has rapidly evolved, and we've replaced paper maps with digital maps. In a 2021 study session, I presented the various services provided by GIS, which are now citywide and no longer limited to any specific department. So we pretty much service most of the departments within the city. And tonight's presentation will showcase the growth of GIS technology through interactive applications. This is a summary of our services that we provide. We provide products to our internal and external customers in forms of reference maps, data downloads. We also integrate with business systems for the city. And some of those business systems, GIS is actually a requirement for the system to function. So it could be a backbone of some of our city's applications as well. And that said, I will move on to my colleague, Matt Ringel, to discuss our internal customers and products.
Good evening, council members, Mr. Mayor, staff. I'm going to talk about some of our internal customers. First of all, my name is Matt Ringel. I'm a GIS analyst too. I've been with the city for just over 2 years now, and I'm excited to show you some of the stuff that we've been working on. So GIS touches, like Leah said, just about every department in the city, some more than others. You know, we support the city attorney's office, usually with more one-off style maps, but we do a lot more with public works, supporting, you know, making sure that we're supporting those people out in the field, maintaining our water, sewer, and storm system. These are the three customers, internal customers, that we do the bulk of our support for. You know, we'll do a lot of asset management with the parks and public works. We do addressing, we do plats, land use, and permitting for CPD. You know, a lot of these different departments have made GIS a central part of their daily operations. Internal products, this is a list of things that I'm going to touch on in the next few slides. We broke things out into different categories, what we call reference maps, and then as opposed to interactive maps. We have an increasing capacity for some real-time tracking, and then we have kind of the day-to-day work of just making sure that the lights are on in GIS and that we're taking care of all of our busy work. Reference maps examples. We make an atlas, and this is a paper product. You know, there's a lot of movement, of course, in GIS to do things digitally, but these paper products are produced so that they can be out in the trucks. It's a great resource for people out in the field to have, because you never know if there's going to be some sort of natural disaster, just in terms of you know, continuity of operations and preparedness. It's great to have this paper atlas. So we produce these for water, sewer, and storm. You know, they go out to all the crews. The crews love them. They're always asking, you know, when's the new one going to be made? We're also produce what we call decision-making maps. These are more one-offs. We're trying to show the relevant information that you might need in order to make an important decision. A few more examples of reference maps, agenda bill maps. This is an agenda bill that I believe is on the agenda for later tonight. We do some analysis maps. The example here is a Verizon signal quality map. We make project area maps. These are for city engineers. These go out on the city website so that residents can see where these projects are happening. They get produced for products that the engineers are producing. We also make, again, paper maps, but they're wall maps, giant maps that are useful for emergency situations. I know fire, police, public works, they really love having these very large-scale wall maps. A couple of examples of interactive maps. The one on the left, that's the AMI project. That's the smart meters that the city's putting in, replacing all of our water meters with smart meters. So this is an example of data that's coming in essentially a real-time live feed from our asset management software. And this shows which meter boxes have been prepped and are, we've gone around, we've touched every single meter box, making sure that it's ready for a new smart meter. This shows which ones have been prepped. We also have what we call WebGIS. This is our main application that we provide to support different city departments with, and I will switch over to a demo of that right now. We have over 100 layers. We have them broken up into different groups. We have utility layers, water, sewer, storm. I'm not going to talk about all of these, but you can see that we have a lot of different layers. This is supposed to be a multi-purpose WebGIS. It's designed to answer a lot of different questions that you might have about city data. You can go in, you can see property, land use, easements, permits. We'll talk about permits more a little bit later. Base map layers, we have parks and docks, all that stuff. Some capability that you have up here, you can search on address, you can search on hydrants, you can search on manholes. So let's just go ahead and search for an address. If you start typing something like a partial address, it will autocomplete based on what you start with. So if I search for this address, it takes us right to, you might recognize this address, is our, I zoomed out too much. This is our community center here. You can click right on a parcel and it'll bring up links. You can link right to the King County Assessor site. You can create an address mailing. I'm not going to demo that, but for example, if we know that there's going to be some city work going on somewhere, you can create a buffer and grab all the mailable addresses around that area. So if you want to alert residents to something that's going on. And the cool part about this is you can click run on property documents, and it has all of our documents that are in our document management system for this property. You can see for this, we happen to have documents going all the way back to 1959. That's not unusual. We have documents going back to the 50s in a lot of places. The most recent one, if I click on that, oh, it looks like we put in a new kitchen hood in the community center. The other things you can do with this is if I want to look for, just mention, this is true, this is true for the community center. I can click on any of these other parcels. I won't dig into it, but this is just a residence. We also have property documents for residents. If I sort these, yeah, 1957. So you can see it's not unusual for us to have these digitized documents going back to the 1950s. Another nice thing about this system is that we have all of our capital improvement projects in here. So I can click on this one, and I can see that there's a 2021 water system improvement project, and we can pull up a document for that. We have the drawings all digitized, and we have the record drawing, the entire record drawing for that capital improvement project, just one click away. We also, one of our other useful layers that we have is, I mentioned easements. I can click on that, I can pull up some easements. We look at the legend here, sewer easement is orange, so we can see this easement that's going into private property. I bet if I turn on utility layers, there's probably a sewer pipe there. Yep, if I click on that, this is useful for the field crews that are going out maintaining pipes. They want to know if they can actually have access to that. If I click on that, I should be able to pull up an easement. I can click on that, and that one didn't pull up, but you get the idea where we have all these documents. They're mostly just, yeah, here we go. Here's an easement that's, it says it's from 1955. So if we wanted to dig into this, we could read exactly the legal language that gives us access to that property for maintenance of our sewer pipe. We also have aerial photos. So if I turn on aerial photos, I'm going to turn off utilities here so they're not blocking all of our view. Aerial photos can take a little while to load because there's, it's a lot of high resolution imagery. If I go over to Town Center here, one of the cool things you can do with this app is that you notice that we have aerial photos going all the way back to 1946. Here I happen to have 1963 toggled on. You can actually crossfade between two different aerial imageries and see what's changed in the years since. So you can see a lot of these buildings. Some of them were here back in 1963. A lot of them weren't. But you can toggle it back and forth and see exactly what's changed. Other examples of interactive maps that we have a permits and land use projects map. Lets you search, in a map-based interface and filter for permits and land use projects. Leah will be talking more about this later. We also have apps that are meant to be used in the field for data collection. These are apps, mapping applications that you put on an iPad. You go out into the field and you can track where invasive species are. We have one that lets you do tree inspections. We have a new one that's specifically for finding the locations of park trail defects. And then this can tie right back into our asset management system. You can create work orders to fix these, or if there's tree maintenance that needs to be done, or whatever it is that's based on what was found out in the field. We've been working on spinning up our real-time capabilities over the past year. We have a map that's specifically designed for tracking snow events. What this does is it tracks where our vehicles are, and you can see what's been cleared in near real time. And this is useful for the public works crews that are going out there and clearing streets in a snow event. We have a real-time tracking capability on our street sweeper. This is useful for the it's called NPDES, National Pollutant Discharge Elimination System. We have to show that we're keeping our storm drains clear of debris, and it makes sure that we have a healthy stormwater system. It also just keeps our streets looking nice. So we're able to track that. We're able to track where they were, what streets and when, and how many cumulative miles. We also have a new system that just came online relatively recently. Alfredo, our IT manager, installed this. It's called a pavement sensor. It's right at City Hall, kind of the south side of the parking lot, I believe. The idea around this is that this helps our public works crew determine when is it appropriate to apply de-icer. And I will show a demo of that real quick. So we have air temperature is the light blue, surface temperature is the dark blue, and then dew point. We also have a cumulative 24-hour cumulative rain gauge down here at the bottom. And this helps the city be safe and save money because, as I understand it, if you apply de-icer too early, then it washes away and it's not effective. If you apply it too late, then it's also just ineffective because it sits on top of the ice. So you want to, in order to maximize safety and maximize efficiency, you want to know exactly when to start applying that de-icer. And this helps us determine, make that determination so that we're not wasting anything and we're keeping everybody safe. I'll just quickly mention a couple other things that this has going on. You might have noticed this battery voltage. That's because this is sitting, it's not connected to any main power. It's got a solar panel and a battery. And you can see it's got this day-night cycle where it charges during the day, and then when there's not daylight, it's using up the power in the battery. If it gets too low, then it'll stop working. So Alfredo did a lot of nice work making sure that this is not using very much power and is continuously operational. It also has access to a couple other weather layers. So if you're looking for kind of the overall picture, you can turn on the precipitation forecast, and it'll tell you how much rain is expected. And let's see if we have any, there's watches and warnings. We might not have anything too interesting right now, but there's a small craft advisory. So if there's other kind of watches and warnings going on for the area, you'd be able to see them right away. Day-to-day operations, this is just some of the upkeep that we have to do amongst all the other projects that we're working on. We get work orders, over 2,000 GIS work orders processed to date. This is since, installing CityWorks as our work management system. These are everything from, you notice some of the examples here. Somebody installs a new water service, it goes in as a work order, then I take that information, I update GIS. There might be a signpost that gets replaced. I update GIS based on that. Capital improvement project updates. We get the record drawing. All of that information has to go into GIS. We also have a schedule of weekly, monthly, and quarterly data processing. This is everything from, one of the things we get is we get parcel ownership data from the county every month. We take that data, we ingest it into our GIS system, then it's available for other systems to use. I'm going to pass it back over to Leah. She's going to talk about some of our external customers and products.
Okay. Hello again. For this part of the presentation, I'm going to focus more on our external products that we also have. So GIS products extend to the public as well. We refer to them as our external customers, from residents exploring the community or potential home buyers, developers researching land use and zoning, or consultants needing data to complete a city project. The request for data is definitely never ending as it relates to GIS. So we've created a variety of products to make it easy for the public to access the information that they need. Here's a list of all the external products that I'm going to touch on in the following slides. I'm not going to step through every single one of these bullet points. I will just show them mostly visually. So one of the new products that is out there right now is our GIS map portal. A user can download GIS data, make their own maps if they want to. It also has our interactive public-facing WebGIS. Matt demoed the internal one. We have a public version of that same application. Users and public can also peruse the map gallery to look at static reference maps. They can download it and save it for themselves. And then it's also where we have a lot of the applications available to the public for them to be able to launch and explore. Let me see if I can demo our map portal. Oops. All right, so to get to our map portal, normally most people would probably start in our landing page for the city website. And in here, to get to the map portal, you would go to Departments and Information and Geographic Services. See if that loads. There it is. In here, it gives a little bit information about Information and Geographic Services. And at the bottom, there's a little icon that allows you to click and get into the city's map portal. It summarizes it a little bit, the maps, application, and data. And when you click on this, it launches our geospatial hub or our map portal. It's a completely separate site that, that launches from the city's website. It describes a little bit of the information and data that you're able to get through the site. Again, this is exactly the same one as in the slideshow deck, the interactive web map, download map layers, gallery, and interactive applications. In this case, I'd like to demo a sample of a user that might be looking for GIS data or layers. And so they would go into the download map layers, and when they click on that, it launches a site that's fairly simple. It shows only 3 data sets or themes, but within each of these themes, like environmental, planning, or base map, there are multiple layers that are grouped into it. So for example, environmental layers will have water courses and contours and slides and those types of assets, while planning is more dedicated to right-of-way and zoning and land use related layers. And base map layers is your base for a map, your addressing and streets and parcel lines. If a user is not sure where data that they want might be located, they could easily try to find one. In this case, let's search for a water course. We'll hit search. It will return where it belongs to, so you would click on it. I'll let this load in here. And it shows all of the different layers within the environmental group. And here's our water course. If I click on that, it will preview what the water course will look like if you put it on a map. As you can see here, all the blue lines that are visible indicates a presence of a water course on the island. And now I'm like, okay, that's really what I'd like. I'd like to download it. So they would just click the download button, and the user will have the option to decide which format they'd like their GIS data to be downloaded to. In most cases, it's usually a shapefile, and they can load that in their own mapping application, either in their own offices or students in schools or even at home. Let's see, other things that you can find in the map portal is our map gallery. When it loads, it just lists a list of maps that are available for you to download. When you click one of these, it allows you to download the PDF and share it and save it to your own machine and maybe have for future references. Some of them are fairly large, so it takes a little bit of time to download, but there is that same map that a person might be interested in. Back at the map portal, there's also different applications that you can explore, including more specific to themes, like a public parking location. If there's time today, I will demo that. Some crime mapping, tree permits, public art collection, and also the permit and land use map is located here, which is going to be my next demo. Okay. Where did my slide go? Oh, my slide went away. Sorry. Yeah, it's weird. Apologies. We'll just go ahead and share my screen again.
Play it. Oh, there you go.
Sorry about that. Okay, next slide is the interactive. It's another interactive map for permit and land use. This particular map is specific to. It pulls out information about permits and land use and displays it in a more informative way for users to do some research. So we have a lot of island-wide interactive maps, but GIS can also create specific ones so that it's just isolated to certain kinds of information. In this particular permit and land use interactive map, which I'm going to demo next, the search functionality is extended to ability to filter a time frame for a specific permit or land use, whichever one you might be interested in. And you can also view submittal documents for specific land use and permits. Let me demo that. Okay. Again, to get to the site, you would go to the map portal, the hub, and click on this specific application, which loads our our permit and land use map. It has a disclaimer for the public to accept. It just talks about that the information is as is and it's constantly changing. So if you hit accept, it gives you the ability to be able to explore the application. In here on the left panel, it gives a little bit information about what you're going to see while exploring the map, different colors and what they mean, layers that you can toggle on and off, including aerial photos. You can turn that on and off. Expand this, you get all the different aerial photos as well. I'll turn that off for now. It gives you the capability to do some search, including address or parcel. If you have a specific permit number or land use number handy, you can just punch that in and it will go to that specific location. And if you're not quite sure what's going on, or you know something's happening but you don't know the address or the permit number, you can try to search geographically by filtering through a date range, for example. I will show how to get to a land use file if you have an address. So we click on search address, and let me see, 8035. Here we go. 8035 Southeast 45th Street is the property I'm interested in. I would hit search and it will come up here. As you can see, the parcel is shaded in this salmon color. If you're not sure what that means, you could either look at the legend and see that it is a critical area. Also in here, critical area is that salmon color. If you need to know more about this property, you can do identify it, and it will return that this is a critical area ordinance and gives information about what is happening there. Remove the west side of single family residential and rebuild it. It has the permit and project number, when the application date was. This is fairly new, just in a couple weeks ago. And the status, it's in review. And if you're curious to see what documents have been submitted for this land use, you could click on the plan link, and it returns a document page with another link that you can click on, and let's see what the plans look like. Here it will show any plan submitted based on what's available on that document link. In this case, it's a 28-page site plan for the project. It goes into quite some detail. Okay. Let me close this. Another way to search is if you have a land use number handy, we could type that in. Let's try to find an ADU. Some random numbers. Again, the information here only shows active permits and land use, and it goes back about, I think, 72 months, which is about 5 years. So ADU 21006, we'll hit search. It moves to that area on the map, and again, it's shaded. It's designated color for an ADU, which is purple. And because I already searched by land use number, I don't need to identify it again. It just returns that information right away. So if I click on it for more information, again, gives more information about that land use project. This one, they're going to add a ADU or a mother-in-law unit at the bottom within the lower level of the property. And if I'm curious, want to know more about that submittal, here are all of the documents submitted for that specific permit or land use. If you're not quite sure how to find a permit or land use, you can maybe try to filter geographically by a date range. So in this case, we'll just enter a date. I'd like to see everything in the last 6 months. That is a permit related activity. I'll do buildings, because if I leave it blank, it will return everything, and that could take a while to run. So I'll hit view permits. And I'd just like to say whatever is returned, you can also export to an Excel file, so you have a tabular version of the permit files. So here it returns everything that's within 6 months, or the date range that you entered for building permits. You could see that it's listed on here on the right panel. If you're more interested in a specific area, for example, well, I knew it was somewhere in the Mercerwood neighborhood, you could zoom in there and you could see, oh, I think it's this one. So if you click on that, you could, oh wait, I have to go identify it. And I could click on that, and again, it will return the information that you're trying to find for a building. This one will be an alteration to the single family home. And like the previous demos I showed, you can get to the documents for that specific permit. Other interactive applications we have, like I said, we had the public web GIS, which Matt demoed the internal version of. Another one that's fairly new is our town center parking. I think we have a little bit of time for this demo, so I'll go ahead and demo that. To get to that, again, you would just need to go to our map portal and click on the specific application you're interested in. In this case, it loads like this for our parking around the town center. This one just zooms right into the town center, and it allows the user to research the kinds of parking that's available within the town center. They can click on a map, let's say this blue area right here, and it says that this is Sunset Highway. You need a permit parking from Monday to Friday for a specific time frame, and it's in a cul-de-sac. As opposed to if you click this yellow, it says you can park here for 2 hours, and it's on the south side of Sunset Highway. We've also added information about public parking in buildings. So for example, Island Square, you can park there for 2 hours, but you must register with another parking app. So it gives a little bit of information so that someone could plan where to park for the day. And obviously the red areas, you can't park there, no parking. Okay. We have more interactive applications, our crime web map. You can search for crime within a certain time frame, and different types of crime will show up. It's only updated up to the last 6 months and nothing beyond that. Our public art story map allows a user to explore public art within the community. You can view a photo, some description about it, and some artist information, and if it's actually available for sale as well. So because we constantly make interactive applications, we are going to enhance some of them so that they're more user-friendly as technology changes. So we're going to do some upgrades to our crime map and our public art and everything else that's already available. Upcoming applications include donated benches. Allows the user to explore benches that are donated and the plaques that might be on each one of those bench and the dedications. Let's see, during the pandemic, we partnered with our Parks Department to create a picnic and event facilities map that looks similar to our public art application. User can explore a park and see what kinds of facilities and rentals they might be able to book for an event. Hopefully, we can get some momentum on this again, since this effort was started before the pandemic, right during the pandemic time. Other products, we also provide addressing for the city with the help of the fire marshal. We assign all legal addresses within the city. A copy of the address letter is provided to the homeowner, and it's a crucial document because it allows them to set up accounts, bank accounts, security alarm systems, and more importantly, receiving mail. We also assist in land rights and ownership, mostly within city right-of-way, and city easements. King County is the legal authority for property information, so if we can't answer a question easily, we direct a customer to that site. Other products, we do public records requests from simple to complex. When they're more simple, we direct them to our public map portal if they just need to download data. We share all our data to public safety, E911, and NORCOM. We also share all of our data with King County into their GIS open data, which is a similar site like our map portal. And in regional collaboration, some of the products that come out of here are very important. One of them is our aerial photo acquisition, which we just completed in March of 2023. And in that case, we did a lot of cost savings because a lot of organization, local governments, about 10 of them, were able to partner and pitch for the cost of getting a new flight. Some key projects that we're working on, like Matt mentioned earlier, we are doing a meter replacement project. It's island-wide. We're coordinating with Public Works and Finance. For Public Works itself, we're continuing a big migration for utility network layer in terms of our layers. We're also doing an EPA-required project for our lead service lines to ensure that there are no lead pipes in the city's networks. So there's always going to be changes and enhancements in everything that we're doing. And we accomplish a lot of that through some projects. So this is our last slide before we can, if you have questions, we can do that. So every organization is spatial. Everyone's always asking where something is in your assets, maybe a marketing, they need some marketing, so they're trying to find where viable customers would be. Public safety is responding to incidents, so where is that happening? And obviously there's always questions about property and what's happening around your community. Every organization out there is definitely answering something that is location related. Because everything that in GIS is location related, there's definitely a location intelligence, and all that data that you're now seeing that's tabular can have more context and meaning because it's more visual, and because there's data behind it, it's easier to share it across different platforms. So really the importance of GIS really lies in its ability to pull together all the large amount of data necessary to balance maybe competing priorities and projects and solve complicated problems. It definitely just makes sense of the world seeing things in a visual way. Because we've had about 30 years of GIS in the city, it doesn't actually mean we only have 30 years worth of data. Matt mentioned earlier being able to pull documents from the 1950s. We've digitized a lot of plats going back to the 1800s, and so we were able to preserve a lot of information that are very historical. We've definitely have about a century's worth of data in specific types of layers, and so we've been able to preserve it and create a spatial library. Since there's so many to peruse and share with everyone, the data might be complex, but GIS simplifies and gives you the ability to distribute information, which also always can tell a story because it's very visual, answers questions, or solves the problem. And that is the end of our presentation. Any questions?
Very good. Quite a thorough presentation there, Leah and Matt. I appreciate that. First question is from Councilmember Andro.
Hi, thanks so much for that presentation. I have so many things I want to say, but first of all, this is wonderful. I love maps. I have always loved maps, and this is like maps to the 10th degree. So this is great. I was wondering a couple of things, and maybe you don't have the answers to any of them actually, but I'm just going to throw two of them out there. First is, can we use this GIS tool as a way to respond to public records requests? And maybe this is a question for Bio, so I'm going to give him a little bit of a heads up if he's online. Can we, if people request voluminous numbers of documents on certain permits and whatever, can we just direct them to the GIS site and say, you can find everything here? or do we actually have to still respond? And then the second question is completely unrelated to that, but and it's probably maybe a question for Ally or somebody else, but is there a plan to move the large wall maps from City Hall, the aerials that show historically how Mercer Island has grown, and then some of the address maps and stuff into temporary quarters at the community center? Because, like I said, I love looking at the maps, and I think they were a great community service for people to just view how the community has grown and changed. And so I'm just curious about both of those things. But first and foremost, I want to say thank you for a wonderful presentation.
Thank you.
So,
Yeah.
Councilmember Andrew, as far as the public records request question that you have, we do have to respond, and although we don't have to produce it, separately, we do have to sort of somewhat give a direction on for the requester to be able to get the requested and responsive documents from GIS. So it's not just check out our GIS system. It's informing the requester that yes, we do have a GIS system, and if you go through these selections, you find the responsive documents that you are looking. So somewhat tailored response is required to
Okay,
a
thanks.
records request.
Fantastic. That clarifies that for me.
And then Councilmember Andrew, in response to your question about moving the maps, yes, we will keep the historical aerial photos that have been hanging in City Hall. Our community center walls are a little full at the moment, but we definitely will get those hung up when we get a temporary location set up, and keep preserving the history. So, yes.
Okay, thanks so much.
Okay, Deputy Mayor Rosenbaum.
Yeah, I just want to say thanks. I was in a second grade class this week, and they had a raging debate over the island maps over time, if the island was getting bigger or smaller. So if someone can follow up with me offline, I can produce something more definitive than my guesswork, which was no. But that'd be helpful. I just want to say thanks. Also, these maps become really helpful in our work in the last few weeks, and longer than that, but I think intensely the last few weeks with the legislature, as they've had so many discussions about zoning and land use. I've definitely gone down a number of rabbit holes on my own research trying to understand how these things interplay. But I just want to say thanks for your support in that fact. It's been really great, but also the maps are just very detailed and makes it really easy to sort of use as maps to I would just say inform everything that's going on in Olympia.
Thank you. Councilmember Reynolds.
Very impressive tool suite there. Thank you for sharing. Just one question I would have is, I'm assuming, I don't know much about GIS systems beyond what I learned tonight, but I'm assuming that these are not custom coded things that you've done, that we're relying on some software package that maintains this. And I think it's true there are several GIS software vendors. To what extent are the data formats standardized so that if we had to switch to another platform down the road because somebody stopped supporting a particular product, could we do that?
Most of the applications you saw are an extension product of an out-of-the-box solution. So in terms of customization and programming, scripting, the only customization that we do is how we pull the data so that we can share it a specific way to the users. So it's definitely transferable to another solution if our current one, the vendor goes away or the business is no longer there. But for the most part, we haven't had that issue. As long as GIS has been with the city, we've always used the same software, which is Esri software. And from there, a lot of smaller businesses have been able to integrate with them, which is the solutions that you saw with our web GIS, for example. So they partner together, and because of their technology on each side, they are able to extend the usability of their software as well. But to answer your question, we have some programming and scripting built in, but it's not to the degree that if, say, I left or if Matt left the city, the next person coming in has to start all over. There's definitely a lot of backwards engineering that's the software is capable of doing, and documentation.
Okay, thank you.
Councilmember Jacobson.
Thank you very much for the presentation and outlining the multifaceted resources that your system and team puts together. My question is, recently we have been digitizing city records that were trapped or stored in the basement of City Hall or some such. And I wanted to know if that's providing information that can be inputted into the GIS system to deepen the history of what's going on.
Yeah, definitely some of the records that we have will be implemented and imported into a database that is then accessed through WebGIS. The majority of the records that we are dealing with right now are HR and personnel and finance. So not really spatial, but we definitely, anytime there's something that comes along with land use or permitting, we are definitely making sure it's connected in GIS.
Thank you.
Councilmember Weinberg.
Yeah, hi. Great presentation, guys. GIS is always fun because there's so many ways to use it, and we'll continue to discover more ways to use this data for the betterment of Mercer Island and the people and the city. Everyone benefits when we have a way to visualize what's going on and get to the data quickly. I had one question, which I heard you say that the crime map data only contains the last 6 months. Is that based on the data that we're receiving from a source is only available for the last 6 months, or do we choose to cut it off at 6 months? And is there a reason why?
Sure. The crime map application was developed in, I would say, 2020, I believe, as a response to replacing a product that the city was paying for. We were able to just create the same product in-house to do some cost savings. After working with our police department, we followed their direction on how much data they'd like to be displayed, and I believe 6 months was about the time frame that they only wanted displayed. It doesn't mean that every 6 months crime is solved or anything. It just lessens the data display on the map. And the type of data that's also displayed, we were directed by police to remove certain kinds of more sensitive data, for example, and that's not necessarily available. It's available, but it's not necessarily needed for the public to, explore more. So a lot of these applications really get direction from the requester.
Thank you.
And I am happy to add to that. For the record, Ed Holmes, your police chief. When we looked at the map itself, if we put more than 6 months of data on that map itself, it becomes almost overwhelming with a number of little bubbles. So on the website for the police department, we do have a 10-year look back. So it's a comparison chart like this. So on the website itself, you can look back 10 years to see that data. So it is there, but just as far as the visual on the map, it becomes too cluttered to be meaningful if there's too many dots on that. That's the thinking behind that.
Okay, great. Thank you.
You bet.
Very good. All right, Council, not seeing any other questions, we're going to move on. Matt and Leah, again, thanks for the incredible work. We appreciate it.
Thank you.
All right.
Thank you.
Next up on the agenda, we have the City Manager's Report, for which we welcome Chief of Administration, Ali Speets.
Thank you, Mayor Nace. I believe that Casey will be sharing. There we go. Okay, I am stepping in for Jessie this evening, and she's out of the office this week. So our first update for you is on boards and commissions and city council meetings. We have our annual planning session with the city council next Friday at 9 a.m. and here at the community center. And then our next council meeting is Tuesday, March 5th at 5 p.m. We also have a planning commission meeting coming up on February 28th at 6 p.m. You can always go to the website at mercerisland.gov/meetings for more information. A few city updates for you. Talking about City Hall transitions on Tuesday, February 27th. The first two modular buildings for the police department, the locker room portable and the evidence room portable, will be delivered. We are doing site development, utility connection. The engineering for that is ongoing. We want to give some kudos to our utility billing team who went above and beyond during their file organization and move out of City Hall. They sorted finance materials as well as emptied existing bins from larger totes and then into larger totes and arranged for those to be picked up. So their efforts are supported. They helped support our busy custodial staff and made a good dent in the process of clearing out City Hall. An update on the park zone process. The City of Mercer Island is updating its comprehensive plan as part of the periodic review required by the GMA. And the City Council added the creation of a new parks zone to the 2024 Comprehensive Periodic Plan Update Scope of Work with Resolution number 1621. The Planning Commission and the Parks and Recreation Commission held a joint special meeting last week on February 8th, 2 weeks ago, to discuss the revised process and the collaborative work ahead. City Manager Jesse Bond presented the background of the parks zone idea and spoke about the adoption of the PROS plan and the process for updating the city's comprehensive plan. The Parks and Recreation Commission will begin their review work of the park zone on March 7th. There is a page up on our Let's Talk platform regarding this work. Island Crest Park is having some turf replacement work done. So last week, Field Turf finished laying and trimming most of the new turf on the north infield at Island Crest Park. The remaining infield turf, including high wear access areas, such as the home plate and the baselines and the permanent pitcher's mound, will be installed this week. The project is on track to be completed by the end of the month and will be ready for the high school boys baseball. If you have questions about the project, you can reach out to Sarah Bluvis, CIP Project Manager, at her email address, sarah.bluvis. Next slide, please. Casey, can you go to the next slide? All right. Let's see here. Hold on for just 1 second, everyone, while we see what's happening. Okay, we are switching here and bringing up the PowerPoint. Thank you for your patience. This delay does not mean a delay in the turf project. That will get completed. Okay. All right. Oh, we got presentation mode on. Okay, I'm gonna click through here. Okay, so large project update for you on, you gotta take that down, on Sewer Basin 40. So teams are installing 12,000 feet of cured in place pipe into our existing sewer mains to prevent groundwater seepage and stormwater runoff inflow into our sewer network. In February, Instapipes successfully lined the most difficult sewer mains in this project. And up until now, crews had been working out of an assortment of specially equipped box trucks meant for collecting CCTV, jetting, bypassing, curing, and reinstating. But steep and narrow driveways and backyard manhole locations in the final phases of this project meant the team had to reconfigure their work plan. So from 4022 East Mercer Way to the Mercer Woods Shore Club boat ramp, crews hand-carried lines and equipment over land, deployed a custom barge, and winched the CIPP liner material through nearly 1,000 feet of existing and previously lined sewer main to execute this work. This difficult access led to a few work days, finishing up after dark. The project's nearly complete, with only about 600 feet of liner and less than 60 service connection seals remaining to install. All work should be finished by the end of March. A big thank you to the crews who worked on that. Luther Burbank Boiler Building is getting its facelift. So city staff had a pre-construction meeting this week with their design consultant and contractor. We'll begin mobilizing staff and equipment in the boiler building site next week. Trails near the boiler building will be temporarily closed, and the main Luther Burbank parking lot will be used for some contractor parking over the next couple months until the park usage increases in the spring. We celebrated the Lunar New Year on Sunday, February 10th, with the Mercer Island Chinese Association in partnership with the city. We hosted a wonderful celebration here at the community center. Over 1,500 people attended and enjoyed a fun-filled day of activities, dazzling performances, crafts, and tasty cuisine. We're already talking about additional collaborations we can do. Arch is looking for members for their Community Advisory Board. The Community Advisory Board consists of 12 to 15 community residents and housing professionals that work with Arch staff to evaluate local housing funding proposals and increase awareness of housing issues on the east side. They usually meet on the fourth Wednesday in the evening of each month for 2 hours, either virtually or in person in Redmond. If you're interested, applications are due March 15th. For more information and to apply, please go to the Arch website at archhousing.org/news. A few legislative session updates. It's been fast and furious. Last week, Mayor Neese testified in a Senate Local Government Committee in opposition of HB 2160, the Transit-Oriented Development Bill, and he testified in support of HB 1956, the Fentanyl Education and Prevention Bill in the Senate Committee on Early Learning and K-12 Education. And this morning, Mayor Neese testified in opposition of HB 2474, which inserts Department of Commerce into our permit review process related to transitional housing, permanent supportive housing, and homeless shelters. However, shortly after testimony was heard, the Senate Local Government, Land Use and Tribal Affairs Committee declined to move this bill forward. There are a handful of bills that relate to recruitment and retention of police officers, and AWC is leading the advocacy work on these bills this session. Upcoming events. We have a fabulous senior resource fair. Recreation and Youth and Family Services are hosting a senior resource fair to provide older adults with information, resources, and services that cater to their specific needs and interests. This event's a great opportunity for our seniors and their families to see all that's available in our community to help navigate various aspects of aging while maintaining a healthy and fulfilling lifestyle. Come and join us on Saturday, March 2nd from 10 a.m. to 12 p.m. It's a free event with lots of information. More information about the event can be found at mercerisland.gov/parksrec. And our Mostly Music in the Park 2024 schedule has dropped. Is it summer yet? No. What we would really like it to be, I would. I need some sunshine. Please mark your calendars for this summer for Mostly Music in the Park, 6:30 to 8:30. We have a shorter schedule this summer because we do have an upcoming sewer line replacement project scheduled in Mercerdale Park. So we also would like to do a big thank you to our sponsors, For Culture and Meal Posto. Some good news for you. We want to say thank you to Mercer Island Police Department Officer Lum. Recently, a community member reached out to Officer Christina Lum about a positive experience they shared. Mercer Island Kindergarten Girl Scouts troop was hosting a meeting about respecting others. Officer Lum came to the meeting and answered questions from the group of young girls and did a wonderful job talking with them about how to be safe. We thank Officer Lum and Sergeant Schmalhofer for investing their time in building positive experiences like this with our youth and community. And our thrift shop is now open on Fridays. A few weeks ago, we started opening the shop on Fridays for shopping only from 9 a.m. to 5 p.m. The first 3 Fridays have gone well, but we need more volunteers. We're expecting sales to increase and we need help. If you're interested, please go to mercerislandthrift.org/volunteer. We want to thank the community for your continued support of the thrift shop and youth and family services. And that's all.
Very good. Thank you for that. Our next item of business is appearances, which is an opportunity for anyone to speak to the city council on any item except items requiring a public hearing, any quasi-judicial matter, or campaign-related matters. City Clerk, we have a number of people signed up for public comment today?
Yes, that is correct, Mr. Mayor.
Okay. Tonight's agenda will include in-person public appearances and remote public appearances via Zoom. Individuals wishing to address the council may do so in person or by Zoom or telephone, provided they've registered with the city clerk by 4 p.m. today. When it's your turn to speak, you'll be called by name. Remarks must be addressed to the council as a whole and not to individual council or staff members. Any person making personal, impertinent, or slanderous remarks or who becomes boisterous, threatening, or personally abusive while addressing the city council may be requested to leave the meeting. Please speak audibly, state your name and city of residence for the record. There'll be a timer on the screen. You'll have 3 minutes to speak. When your time is ended, I'll thank you for your comments and move to the next speaker or item of business. City Clerk, please call the first speaker.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Our first speaker tonight is Liz Friedman.
Welcome.
Hi, everyone. Can you hear me okay?
You sure can. Go ahead and start.
Great, thank you. I'm returning to talk to you about the Strom Jewish Community Center, a valued community asset that's open and welcoming to everyone, regardless of income, race, ethnicity, orientation, religion, or residence. 3 months ago, I was grateful to see the J valued and prioritized by the Mercer Island Planning Commission and you, the City Council, where both bodies voted to include the J zoning request in the city's 2024 docket. To hear the commissioners and council members alike acknowledge that civic, recreation, education, and religious organizations should be valued and prioritized as outlined in the city's comprehensive plan was encouraging. It also gave me hope that the J may finally have found a path to allow it to rebuild and stay on the island. However, just this last week, we learned that the city staff don't intend to take up the J's proposal until 2 years from now in 2026. And this discovery seems incongruent with the intent of both the Planning Commission and this council. More than that, it unnecessarily adds another 2 years of delay to an organization that's been trying to find a way, in full transparency to the city and to this council, to rebuild its aging facilities for the last 7 years. The JCC facilities are feeling all of their 53 years of love and use by this community, and we need to be able to update our aging infrastructure, address accessibility issues, allow for better traffic flow, create sustainable facilities, and provide for a safe and secure environment, and to do so while being a good neighbor. As past president of the J's Board of Directors, I've been closely engaged with the leadership of the J in trying to find a way to update our facilities ever since it became apparent that land use changes undertaken by the city in 2017 severely curtailed our ability to make any substantive changes. And for the past 7 years, we've studied, proposed, evaluated, and exhausted every angle within the city's current zoning regulations to no avail. These are 7 years of our facilities not getting any younger, and 7 years of the community not seeing benefit from improved facilities and services associated with them. We finally have a zoning proposal now that can and should work for both the J and the city. It's not complicated. We are not trying to change code. We are trying to change designation. And adding unnecessary delay and uncertainty when the J has been thwarted for over 7 years at no fault of its own is disappointing at best. At worst, it could very well impact critical decisions around the longevity of the J remaining on Mercer Island. And I hate to imagine Mercer Island without this gem of a community asset. I know that you as a council, as representatives of our city, value our community organizations, and would ask that you please do what you can to adjust the city's workload and ensure this topic gets addressed this year. Please use this year to demonstrate your support for community organizations that enhance community, culture, education, fitness, and overall life on MI. Thank you.
Thank you.
Our next speaker tonight is Denise Jaffe.
You're on mute there.
Okay, unmuted now. Sorry, this seems like it's getting very old, and I gotta say, it's very disappointing to hear that you now propose putting off the review until 2026. So basically, the previous vote seems a bit disingenuous. It's particularly concerning, considering the extensive discussions held with so many of us, highlighting the very precarious state of the current building's condition. And given the projected timeline of maybe over a decade for the construction of a new J by the time it starts and finishes, every day counts. And by endorsing this change, the J has to continue pouring money into costly repairs instead of allocating funds towards constructing a new facility. I simply can't see this happening. It's not fair or practical. And you made your decision already. So please do what you can to adjust the city's workload and assure this topic gets addressed this year. You know, I can't imagine this is how resources are allocated for all the projects. So why the J? Why has this been going on for 7 years? And I don't want to repeat all the benefits that have already been so eloquently said, and that you've already acknowledged benefit the Mercer Island community. So please, please find a way to get this done this year. Thank you.
Thank you.
Our next speaker tonight is Addie Smith.
Can you hear me? Can everyone hear me?
Welcome. Go ahead.
Okay, I am going over 4 seconds. So if you'll give me 3 minutes and 4 seconds, I would appreciate that. Hello, my name is Addie Smith. Today is February 20th, 2024. These are the Mercer Island City Council members in Mercer Island, Washington. I initially began reaching out to all of these city council members and their current mayor in 2019. In 2019, the mayor was Benson Wong. In 2019, I also began going to the Mercer Island Police Department to file police reports against one white woman. I informed the police department and these city council members that that one white woman was recruiting other races to threaten, harass, assault, and stalk my daughter and I. The reason she began this racist and bigoted behavior is because I wouldn't allow her to live in an apartment that was meant for people who earned low income. She earned a healthy living as a paralegal for a law firm. Let's call her Nikki. I was the operations manager for this $100 million luxury apartment building. It is Hadley Apartments. My predecessors were allowing well-to-do whites living on Mercer Island to rent these low-income apartments. These whites could afford to pay the full amount of the rent. Nikki wanted to live in one of these low-income apartments like one of her friends. Let's call one of them Carol. When I refused to violate housing laws for the state of Washington and even the city's own regulatory agreement with my former employers, Nikki and the people she recruited to harass, threaten, stalk, and attack my daughter and I were allowed to do so with the knowledge of the police, the Mercer Island City Council members all sitting here, and my former employers. The police informed me that Nikki also asked them if she'd be arrested for recording me while I was in my office at Hadley Apartments. The previous City of Mercer Island's interim city manager was responsible for monitoring applications, the wait list, and the city's agreement with the owners of Hadley Apartments, ensuring that the multifamily tax exemption was being followed. The City of Mercer Island gave my former employers thousands of dollars in waivers. The previous interim city manager did not do her job. Because of her negligence and my unlawful arrest by the Mercer Island police, The city of Mercer Island and the state of Washington will be held, the citizens will be held accountable. I encourage everyone to request and listen to all the police reports from Tuesday, November 26, 2019. Listen to some of the officers' statements. 3 of the officers on the scene of the attack that could have ended my life that day were actually at my home the day before. I told them once again about Nikki and the convicted felon who had been attacking me and stalking my daughter. This convicted felon for trafficking, let's call her Jill, she'd stalk my daughter and ask her what kind of N-word with the hard R she was. When Jill attacked me on November 26, 2019, she had a gun. I thought I was going to die that day. I was on my way back to the Bellevue East Municipal Court to file another.
Our next speaker tonight is Paul Burstein.
Welcome, Paul.
Thank you for the opportunity to speak. I'm going back to the situation with the JCC. I'm Paul Burstein. I've been a resident of Mercer Island since 1986, so I'll just mention that. The meetings of the Mercer Island Planning Commission and the Mercer Island City Council in November and December went really well from the point of view of proponents of the upgrading of the JCC. And it seemed as though the upgrading would be able to move forward. But now we are confronted with the suggestion that the docket does not even be put on the docket for 2 years. This is very difficult to understand. If in December, the council had said, well, we're sympathetic to your request, but come back in 2 years, that would be thought of as a no. Well, what we're seeing right now also amounts to a no. No on moving forward with the upgrading of the JCC. Nobody can plan on this basis, not people trying to raise funds, not people trying to come up with plans for buildings, not people who are concerned about the fate of the JCC. When things get indefinitely delayed, as they may very well be yet again, it's bound to be very destructive to the prospects for doing anything to improve the JCC here on Mercer Island. The city council here, I think, has a great opportunity. It can give the go-ahead to a project that will benefit not only members of the JCC, but it's thousands of members and people all over Mercer Island who make use of the J's facilities and benefit from its programs. I'm asking, please keep supporting what is a wonderful opportunity for the JCC and for Mercer Island. Please don't put up any more roadblocks in our way. Thank you.
Thank you.
Our next speaker is Dan Nordell.
Good evening. My name's Dan Nordell. I am a 20-year resident of Mercer Island. I'm here as the president of the Board of Trustees of Mercer Island Country Club to talk about the docket amendment to support temporary structures or bubbling the tennis courts at MICC. And specifically, I'm going to talk about kind of our offer to come to a way that we can work in parallel of all the legislative mandates that the city's dealing with, but we can move forward 40% of the docketed items that are non-legislatively mandated by MICC stepping up to help fund additional costs to hire outside resources that the city would need to advance the work, to make Hillis Clark, our outside counsel, available to provide work product to support this effort. They obviously would remain our attorneys, but they are land use practitioners and could produce first drafts of staff reports, memorandums, et cetera. Both, and we would be moving forward both docket item number 10, which is the city's temporary structure item, and MICC's number 15, the one for temporary resources. So, I'm sensitive. You receive a lot of email. I think the way to read that is we're in a pretty dysfunctional place. We're not able to meet the need, and you're reading passionate sort of support for this collaboration to move things forward quickly. I think you've received some a bit of constituent feedback that the project cannot exist in the residential zone. We're confident this is not correct. The code amendment is a legislative change. You have the discretion to make it. It's consistent with the approval that's outlined in MICC Code 19.15.250.d. We believe the criteria are met. It's outlined in detail in our application. The comprehensive plan expressly calls out support of private recreational facilities in residential zones. This is exactly that. It's certainly not impacting residential character. It's screened by mature trees. They're 50 feet plus surrounding the site. It's bordered by MICC property on two sides, Island Crestway on one side, the Saddle Club on the other side. Both MICC and the Saddle Club have structures over 30 feet, which are under CUP, have been here historically. It's not out of character with the site. So what we're asking is that you review priorities in your.
Our next speaker tonight is Amy Lavin.
Hello. Thumbs up if people can hear me.
Welcome.
Thank you. Hi, everybody. Think you all know who I am. I'm speaking on behalf of the J. In an effort to not repeat what you have just heard from several very capable and articulate speakers, I also want to add that the request we are all making is to assure that this docketed item gets addressed in 2024. I'm not going to talk about kind of how we've gotten to this point, but rather that last week when the city staff indicated that limited people resources were the obstacle in addressing this issue until 2026, we went directly back to city staff, and as Dan just articulated, we also offered to supplement city resources, something that is common across other jurisdictions, and something that we are ready to do in an effort to make sure that our request to rezone our property and for the country club, it sounds like they similarly are looking for ways to accelerate this in the next couple months, not couple of years. We also, when we asked also about whether or not the Jay and Country Club requests could be addressed in this year's comprehensive code review and update, the city said no. This seems a little unusual. As we all know, a city is a coordinated puzzle, and a collective strategy seems both common sense and prudent. Nonetheless, staff remains adamant in their refusal to take this up in a timely manner, leaving this issue for a future Mercer Island City Council to address. As we all know, 2 years is potentially a different set. The City of Mercer Island and the Council has repeatedly stated support for community organizations. As others have noted, it is part of our comprehensive plan and a priority of our community. For organizations like the J that bring needed health and wellness programs, childcare, cultural and arts entertainment, and so much more to the island. As we've all acknowledged, the 2017 Single Family Code update cut off the path that the many community organizations on Mercer Island had previously used to keep facilities current, functional, and safe. We remain stuck in a position where we can't notably update our facilities or reconstruct them to meet modern community needs. The J serves a broad audience, and we are simply trying to upgrade our outdated facility to meet contemporary community needs in an ADA accessible building with sustainable systems and modern technology. Again, we've offered to commit private funding to this community center that serves the entire island and provides a significant improvement to what we all experience today. The resistance we continue to face is confusing and frustrating after 6 years and seems delayed by opaque and ever-moving community and city interests. We know that you all and the Planning Commission have stated your commitment to our organizations, and we ask again that you do what you can to shift the priorities of the city's workload in this coming year to address this item. Thank you very much for your time and for your service.
Thank you.
Our next speaker is Elsa Soling.
Hello, hello. This 3 minutes is going to go fast. I can already feel it. My name is Elsa Soling, and I am a Mercer Island resident. I live in the East Seattle neighborhood, and I'm here today to talk about what you spoke about earlier about the Mercer Island as a whole feeling, is it growing or is it shrinking? And there was a request for a long plat approval for the Old Boys and Girls Club, 2.88 acres to be subdivided into 14 lots. This land has been part of the community and for the community since 1914, if not earlier. And turning it into 14 homes is taking away from our community. It is not adding. There is no communal space on that. They have a very small strip that will be full of trees, but essentially it's 14 homes that are going to then go into our parks that are already overcrowded. And I have been looking at the Mercer Island Comprehensive Plan, and Goal 20 is to continue the island's unique quality of life through open space preservation, parks and trail development, and well-designed public facilities. It's also to acquisition new land. This is a wonderful opportunity, and I hope that we're looking for these opportunities to broaden our parks because we need more parks. The city engineer put it very bluntly and clearly, the city is built out. We have nowhere to go. We have Lake Washington, beautiful, surrounding us, so we need more parks. Our community is gonna grow. We're gonna have more residents. Our downtown is flourishing with apartment buildings. We need more parks. So this is an opportunity for us to get more land that should have always been for us. The gentleman who bought it promised us baseball fields. It never happened. I don't know how that fell through the cracks, but that was one of the reasons why he was able to buy it, why we decided it was a good chance, a good opportunity. So Goal 25 is also to support efforts of a structural space for preservation of Mercer Island's historic and cultural heritage. The Old Boys and Girls Club was one of the oldest buildings on the island. Unfortunately, it was demolished, but the land is still historic. This is an opportunity for Mercer Island to hold on to that, to preserve some culture, to preserve our history, and also to let our kids and dogs and old people run about. It was a volleyball field for a number of years, heavily utilized, and now it's chained up. Again, it hasn't been developed yet, and we have the opportunity to get that land back or work with him and get those baseball fields that were promised us. So I very much encourage City Council, the mayor, all of you, to really evaluate applications like these and make sure that they are in line with what we want as a community and are putting the right foot forward.
Our last speaker tonight is Alex Zimmerman.
Sie Heil, my dirty damn Nazi fascist junta with a government.
Mr. Zimmerman, we warned you about this, okay? We warned you about this dialogue and that these types of comments weren't going to be allowed. I understand. I understand. You heard the rules. You heard the rules for public comment. I'll give you one more chance, but you don't need the monologue. Okay. All right. We're going to be in recess for the next 10 minutes. You ready? Okay, council is returning from a 10-minute recess. The time is now 6:40 PM. Next item of business is the consent agenda. The consent agenda contains AB 6403, February 9, 2024 payroll certification, certification of claims for February 2 and 9, 2024, City Council meeting minutes of February 6, 2024 regular hybrid meeting, AB 6404, Rare Disease Day Proclamation Number 322, AB 6412, Luther Burbank Park Aquatic Lands Lease and Stormwater Outfall Easement. Council, is there a motion to approve the consent agenda as presented?
Second.
Okay, moved by Deputy Mayor Rosenbaum, seconded by Councilmember Reynolds. City Clerk, please call the roll.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Deputy Mayor Rosenbaum.
Aye.
Councilmember Jacobson.
Aye.
Councilmember Weiger.
Aye.
Councilmember Weinberg.
Aye.
Mayor Neese.
Aye.
Councilmember Andral.
Aye.
And Councilmember Reynolds.
Aye.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
All right, motion passes. Our first item of regular business is AB 6409, Realignment of Arts Council position terms and expiration dates, and I welcome City Clerk Andrea Larson.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Before you tonight is a housekeeping ordinance to realign the Arts Council position term expiration dates. In 2018, the Arts Council was reduced from 11 members to 9. In 2021, the Arts Council was further reduced from 9 members to 7. Through the reductions over those 2 years, the way the code was written and the position terms of the people in the positions became out of alignment. The amendment tonight just fixes that and sets expirations as 2 per year and aligns with the current membership.
Very good. Council, any questions? Not seeing any questions. Is there a motion to adopt ordinance number 24C-01, amending MICC 3.55.030, paren B, close paren 3, close paren, to realign Arts Council positions, terms, and expiration dates?
So moved.
So moved. Second.
Okay. Moved by Deputy Mayor Rosenbaum, seconded by Councilmember Jacobson. City Clerk, please call the roll.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Councilmember Weiger.
Aye.
Councilmember Andral.
Aye.
Councilmember Reynolds.
Aye.
Councilmember Weinberg.
Aye.
Mayor Neese.
Aye.
Councilmember Jacobson.
Aye.
And Deputy Mayor Rosenbaum.
Aye.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Very good. Motion passes. Our next item of regular business is AB 6408, briefing on Arch strategic planning process, and we welcome CPD Director Jeff Thomas.
Thank you, Mayor. Good evening, Council. I'm going to actually turn this very quickly here over to Allison. We have a special guest this evening to present to City Council, and I'll let Allison make the introduction and get on with the item.
Thank you, Jeff. Allison Van Gorp, Deputy Community Planning and Development Director, and I'm very pleased to introduce Lindsay Masters, the Executive Director of Arch. She, in just a moment, will give you an overview of the Arch strategic planning process that's been underway over the last several months, and give you a preview of the draft strategies for your consideration and comments. I just wanted to quickly say I participated as the Mercer Island representative in the strategic planning process and attended a couple of workshops in August and November. And those were really well done. The consultants and Arch staff did an excellent job managing the process and getting feedback from all the member jurisdictions through the liaisons that were attending those meetings, as well as through a survey. And I'm happy to see that key pieces of the feedback that we provided during that process have been incorporated into the draft strategies. In particular, there's a new focus on state and regional policy that we advocated for, as well as continued support for member cities in our local planning work, including all the work we're doing now and into the future to comply with HB 1220 and HB 1110. Okay, with that, I'll just turn it over to Lindsay. She's got a brief presentation and we'll have time for questions at the end. All right, go for it, Lindsay.
Thanks, Allison, and thanks for having me. I'm going to pull up a presentation here. Okay, so it's great to be here and share an update with you on the strategic planning process. I'm going to start with a little bit of background just to remind us all of why we started this process, the context, and some of the goals that were set out by the Arch Board early on. And then I will walk you through sort of the basic foundational elements that we've been putting together throughout the months that are going to form the strategic plan. And then I'll finally talk about the next steps and how this gets implemented through kind of ongoing processes over the years. You probably don't need too many reminders, but the context obviously is a growing housing affordability gap throughout the state, but particularly in the Puget Sound region and notably so in East King County. We've got now identified planning numbers that we are all aiming for over the next planning period through 2044 of another 80,000 plus additional homes that have to be affordable to households making low incomes at various spectrums. We also are seeing active legislation each year at the state level, sort of expanding and directing how we carry out those efforts at the local level in meeting our obligations under the Growth Management Act. More specific to Arch as an organization, the context for this work is some really thoughtful work over the last several years, evaluating the organization's policies, programs, and procedures, looking at our particular landscape of stakeholders that we work with. We had a couple of in-depth consultant evaluations in recent years that included interviews with developers that we work with, our members, of course, as are probably our most key stakeholder, and then an in-depth look into our trends in staffing and work program and various options for how we can approach those things as a coalition. We also notably celebrated our 30th anniversary last year, the year before we launched this effort, and we're able to kind of look back at what has been the key successes of our coalition, what has worked well, and how we might build on that in the future. The board worked hard towards the end of 2022 and beginning of 2023 to come up with some key goals that would guide this process. First and foremost would be, of course, trying to affirm the commitments of all the member jurisdictions to the coalition, really trying to get greater clarity and consensus on Arch's role and responsibilities vis-a-vis our members. Really coming up, of course, with actionable strategies that we could implement and perhaps phase implementation over the years. And of course, to do that, better aligning the goals and specific activities in our work program with our resources and capacity. And then finally, we had a goal of really taking a look at how we engage with city leaders, particularly as there continues to be change and transition on a regular basis, particularly within elected city leadership. So the process that we have followed to date, which we're now kind of reaching the end of, following establishment of those goals, we selected Lovell Price and Associate as our consultant. We're fortunate to have a consultant with deep connections in history with Arch and affordable housing in East King County in particular. The board established a planning committee that was commissioned to include a sampling of large and small jurisdictions and sort of board members from those different size communities to guide the process and ultimately develop a set of recommended strategies to the rest of the board. We then held an in-depth workshop in the summer looking at Arch's identity, key strengths and weaknesses, and areas of growth and change, areas of tension as well within the work that we do. We also conducted some stakeholder engagement. We distributed a survey that I'll talk about a little bit more in a moment. And then we finally got to sort of the key strategies, and I'll speak a bit more about how the board approached developing those strategies. We're now at a point where the planning committee has made a recommendation to the board on a set of strategies, and the full board is considering those, collecting feedback, which is the purpose of this engagement here, to help bring that back to the board and see what additional changes we might want to make or how to best to incorporate that feedback. Just a quick note on the stakeholder survey. Obviously, that was building on the recent engagement efforts that I mentioned previously. We did include elected officials, nonprofit and for-profit developers, property managers, planning commission members, staff from our member jurisdictions and other public entities, and community members, as well as members that have served currently in the past and currently on our community advisory board. So I'll start by talking about some of the foundational elements of ARCH's identity that are really helping form some key pillars that the plan is going to build from as we move forward. We obviously have a mission and are maintaining our mission to preserve and increase housing for low and moderate income households in East King County. And we have sort of clarified and fleshed out some of the ways that we're accomplishing that mission. Many of these things are things ARCH has done for many years, but we're putting a bit of a finer point on these activities and spelling them out in a little bit more detail here. We also tried to identify three key strengths and strategic advantages that define ARCH and where we can actually deliver programs and services in a unique way as a coalition rather than as city by city. These are those three strategic advantages that the board identified and developed. One obviously is our collaboration as jurisdictions that are more effective in leveraging opportunities and allocating resources compared to single jurisdictions acting on their own. We also have been able to provide specific expertise in all the facets of affordable housing that can be difficult for a jurisdiction to maintain in-house. We make that available to all the members. And we obviously have now a long history and credibility through our sustained commitment to our mission, both in the development of affordable housing and preservation, but also in the operations and long-term sustainability. To help really refine and figure out which strategies the board wanted to move forward, they also developed a set of criteria that were used to screen strategies and that we'll continue to use to help the board facilitate the board to make decisions in the future. Won't go over all of these, but I think it was a thoughtful exercise. And then finally, we spent a significant amount of time with the full board talking about the whole range of strategies, the potential impact that these strategies might have, how these best aligned with our identity and where our role really fits. And then continue to work with the planning committee to pare that down and talk about how these could be translated into action steps and what that might look like as we kind of look ahead to the next step of implementation. So these landed into four key buckets. One is what we're calling governance and administration. We're including a lot within that one. Of those strategies is to increase our engagement with elected officials and educational efforts. We are also looking at how we would streamline future decision-making, both under the current interlocal agreement, but also potentially exploring future governance changes that would be through a future study where we might explore some of those potential efficiencies in the future. We'd also be interested in establishing more formal organizational values around diversity, equity, and inclusion. The second bucket, as Allison mentioned, is trying to put some emphasis on state and regional policy and funding. So this is work we are doing on a limited basis because of sort of staffing capacity, but would love to spend some more energy and investment in this area. This would be supporting our members on cooperative efforts on targeted state and regional legislation and funding with a framework that those efforts are really designed to help our members create more affordable housing faster, so really focusing on development efforts. We also would make Of course, that future staffing potentially, a resource for you, a policy resource, a way that you can engage with state and regional policy and have easy and better access to data and expertise on housing solutions. And then were there to be areas of comment and interest among our members, we would also be available to help support coordination of any legislative advocacy. On the local policy and planning front, as Allison mentioned, we would really like to maintain the current support we provide to members for planning assistance. We also are looking at how we might increase our support for strategies that are going to get development going on the ground. This could be increased support for facilitating the use of surplus land, other local development strategies, and then specific support for special projects that are likely to have a high impact, those that might provide significant density around transit, for example. And then on the fourth bucket, this is a lot of continuation of the work that ARCH is doing, but continuing to be a cost-effective vehicle for you to implement local investments and programs, and to steward that affordable housing once it's created in your community. We talked at length about whether this is an area that should be expanded, whether we should be looking at providing additional services to meet the needs of low-income households, and determined that really was not best in alignment with our strengths and strategic advantages, but that we would be interested in considering partnerships in the future to better meet those needs. So once the board is able to kind of reconvene and bring feedback from all the members, we hope to have an adopted strategic plan that would be implemented through the standard processes that ARCH kind of does all the work that we do, which is the board will prepare annual budget and work plans that would be going to city councils for review and approval. We will continue our quarterly reporting efforts, but I will probably put more of an emphasis on quarterly monitoring of the strategic plan by the executive board. And then we do expect we're going to make changes and adjustments to this plan. It's not going to be a static document that sits on the shelf. It's going to be something the board reviews on a regular basis and makes adjustments based on what's working and what's not working. So I think with that, I would love to take any questions or provide further explanation.
Excellent. Thank you for sharing that. Council, any questions? I'm going to take a stab. Well, Councilor Reynolds.
Can you bring up the graph that you had on like slide 2 or so?
Sure.
I'm not sure the exact number, but it was the one that had the 4 colors of growing lines of need.
Yeah. Sorry, there's a clock chiming. I hope that's not too distracting. Okay. This one here?
Yeah, I'm just curious about the orange line. It's the only one that seems to start at essentially 0 in 2020, and it's hard to believe the need of anything in the affordable housing category is actually 0. Can you comment on what's driving that?
Yeah, so the left side of the chart is the baseline supply.
Okay, so this is supply, not need.
Yeah, it's the current supply compared to the future need. So it's the gap between what we have today and what we're supposed to be planning for in the future.
Okay, so taking the gray line as an example, just to make sure I understand it, we're saying that there is, let's see, it's hard to see how many zeros there are, but I guess about 15,000 units of housing available in that category at the beginning. Is that correct?
Maybe a little less than that, but yeah.
Okay, and then going out in 2044, whatever that is, it's 80-some thousand less 50,000 or so. There's about 30,000 or so with that gray line of need in the future. Is that correct?
Yes, and I do have this data in a table format too, so you could see each of the categories.
Okay, so we're basically saying that the need is about double what we have right now. So for that category, anyway. And even overall, it's 110 versus 30-something. So it's basically the need is about tripling over that 24-year horizon. Is that correct?
For the gray category? is
No,
that
for the
what you're-
total.
For the total,
Because you're going from 30-some thousand up to about 110,000 or so.
that's about right.
Okay, just want to make sure I understood the graph. Thank you.
Deputy Mayor Rosenbaum.
Excuse me. Thanks, Lindsay. Thanks for being here. Appreciate it. I believe that what the mayor and I participated in a couple summers ago as part of this process. So I appreciate the outreach on that. Can you talk a little bit about sort of your perspective on some of the housing bills that have passed in the legislature the last few years, and how you think those might impact your work? Is that something that you've looked at or sort of have any understanding of what opportunities might be there?
Yeah, I think I could sum it up as they are both opportunities and challenges. In some sense, it's providing common direction to local jurisdictions about how to go about planning for affordable housing or housing development in general, and where there's commonalities and how all of our members are approaching that, there's an opportunity for us to provide support as a convener and a key resource that all the members can use together. A good example of that right now is we've just initiated a middle housing affordability work group for all the cities that are looking at how to update your single family zones to comply with HB 1110. We're providing consultant analysis and economic analysis to members that all of you can use at the same time, since you're all required essentially to meet the same set of state rules pretty much on the same timeline. So there's some efficiency in what that does for us as Arch, whereas I think in a typical year, many of our members are working on different planning efforts and policies that don't have a lot in common, so we have to provide individualized support, and it's not quite as efficient. But that said, there are a lot of challenges. I think as Jeff and Allison could probably comment on in more detail on how that state legislation is developed, and implementation challenges that you discover through the process of trying to comply. And so where I think we again could provide some benefits to Arch members is if there are significant challenges or amendments to that legislation that we'd like to advocate for in the future, that we could be a way to consolidate some of those requests and whatnot. But
great, thank you.
Councilmember Jacobson.
Thank you for the presentation, and congratulations or thanks for being an organization that not only talks the talk but has walked the walk. And what I have to say is more of a comment than anything else. In talking to some legislators and who are busy playing in the housing briar patch, asking, have you talked to Arch? Have you seen what they've done? And in every one but one of the times that I talked to legislators, they said, well, Arch, what are you talking about? And so my comment is to very much encourage you to be part of the conversation that goes on between cities, many of which are your constituents, and the legislature, because you do have a model that works. And one of the things that it's demonstrated is if you can go find the money and pile that together, you can go build this stuff, which the supply side or the monetary side of these legislative bills is noticeably absent, and few of us can afford to do any of this to any great degree on our own, particularly cities of 26,000 people and change. But keep up the good work, and we sure hope that you can be a more listened to spokesperson on this subject.
thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember Reynolds.
Yeah, earlier this evening, we heard a comment, I think it might have been in the city manager's report, I can't recall, about this new community advisory board that Arch is forming. What more can you tell us about that? What skill sets are required? What will they do, et cetera?
Yeah, it's actually not a new board. It's been a part of Arch pretty much since our founding. But we do have new openings on the
Okay.
board, so we're trying to market that opportunity widely. We're looking for a diversity of skill sets. Ideally, we have a combination of professional skill sets that are really useful in helping to evaluate real estate development projects. So that could be architectural background, it could be a banking background. We often get land use attorneys volunteering with us, but it could also be folks who've worked with other nonprofits, who've worked in human services, who've worked more on the operations side of understanding how properties are managed and maintained over time. And it's also, frankly, to bring us the knowledge of the community context that the projects we're looking to fund are going into, and to help us understand that better and figure out how we can recommend changes or conditions that will help to make those projects a better fit for the community. So it's a lot of things. It's probably too many things we're trying to look for in one board. It's hard to find all of that in a set of 12 to 15 volunteers, but that's, in summary, that's historically what we've been looking for. And then more recently, we've also been interested in getting perspectives from residents who have actually lived in affordable housing or who have some experience with trying to find affordable housing, to bring that perspective to the board as well.
Thank you.
So I wanted to ask, in the strategic vision, you laid out a number of different components that made up the strategic vision. I'm wondering, in terms of House Bill 1220 and the affordable housing targets and the AMI bands that are within it, can you contextualize how that is going to shape the strategic vision? And is it going to be a distinct kind of component of the Housing Trust Fund moving forward, specifically net new unit creation in those AMI bands, and having a means to allocate those to the contributing cities?
I think I see it as providing even more reason for us to continue doing the work that we've been doing as a coalition. One, in leveraging your local funds and really maximizing their effectiveness together, but also we've been measuring and keeping track of all of those efforts on your behalf, so that we can help you with reporting and ongoing monitoring of what we're accomplishing together. So I see it as kind of affirming a lot of what ARCH has done for many years. There's even specific policies that were developed through the countywide planning policies, and are now showing up in guidance from PSRC that acknowledges the value of those efforts and the fact that we're going to continue including those in our ongoing reporting and how we're meeting housing needs both at the jurisdictional level and at the countywide level.
Yeah, so when funding requests come to jurisdictions that are in the ARCH kind of cooperative, are you looking at the AMI targets for those member jurisdictions and kind of optimizing the funding requests with their contributions? Mercer Island, over the next 20 years, something like 97% of all net new development needs to be affordable at 80% AMI and below. 60% of that is at 50% AMI and below. What we want to see in our kind of funding requests coming from ARCH are AMI bands that are, in that 50% AMI and below. It's where Washington sees the need for half of all new housing over the next 20 years. I understood, and I said this at the time at the GMPC, that these type of targets allocated the way that they are allocated in East King County are going to change the way ARCH does business if ARCH is allowed to kind of contribute those net new counts to jurisdictional funders, which the GMPC agreed to do. Is that a big part of the go forward piece, making sure that the allocation of those funds are coming back to jurisdictions in a way that tie back to 1220, their 1220 targets?
Yeah, I'd say in some ways we're already pretty well aligned with those efforts. Historically, we have established priorities that really say our funding, we want our funding to go to housing that's at 50% AMI and below, and that's where you have the biggest numbers of need in those targets. Where we have probably missed the mark potentially or not quite gotten acknowledged where that number is the biggest below that is that 30% AMI band and below. That's the most difficult to finance and operate housing. And so it may be that we look as a coalition at additional strategies or funding streams we can leverage to achieve more housing at that level. But historically, the trust fund has always prioritized housing at 50% AMI and below. Sometimes we go up to 60% AMI to leverage the tax exempt bond program at the state level, but it's kind of close to that 50% level.
Okay. Can you speak also very quickly to how is Arch going to allocate, if Mercer Island has a housing trust fund contribution of $50,000 and it's spread amongst 7 projects, and that is multiplied with federal funding and state funding, who's going to do the calculation to figure out how many units at which AMI bands that $50,000 created?
I know that the Affordable Housing Committee, which advises GMPC, is tasked with coming up with standards for how to monitor and track those efforts, and it explicitly lists sub-regional efforts that pool funds into projects within a sub-region. So they know that we have all that data about what funds have come in from what city, what housing has been produced as a result, and we'll be sharing that data and helping to report that data. How that gets translated into dashboard and what that kind of shows by jurisdiction has yet to be built, but that's something the Affordable Housing Committee will be working on, and we'll be facilitating that on our end.
That's great to hear. Can you send that data to our staff to forward to me, the Mercer Island history of all affordable housing units created at which AMI bands?
Yeah, that's certainly doable, especially starting as of 2010. We did shift to City of Bellevue providing the kind of host administrative services for all the Arch members in 2010, so it's easy to get accounting records from that year forward, going all the way back to 92.
That would be
take
great.
a little more time, yeah.
No, I don't think we need to go back that far. That would be great. Council, any other questions? Perfect. Well, we appreciate you coming tonight, and we're excited to see where the strategic vision goes.
Thank you so much.
Very good. All right, our next item of regular business is AB 6411, readoption of the 2021 construction code updates, and we welcome CPD Director Jeff Thomas.
Thank you, Mayor. Good evening again, Council. Can everyone hear me okay? Just a quick sound check.
We can.
Yep, great, perfect. What I'd like to do first is, and they just popped on the screen, is introduce our building official, Don Cole, and our fire marshal, Jeremy Hicks. So they'll be here this evening to support the council with any questions that you may have at the end of a quick narrative that I'm going to run through. No PowerPoint tonight. And let's get started. So the purpose of this agenda bill is to readopt state mandated updates from the 2021 construction code cycle. Historically, construction code updates have been completed and adopted on a 3-year cycle. However, COVID, you may recall, interrupted this cycle with the 2018 code updates not being adopted until 2021, which was a year later than normal. In 2023, we all here in the state of Washington attempted to get back on track. Last May, the City Council adopted the 2021 construction code updates, working under what was then a July 1st deadline. However, after the council's action in May of last year, the State Building Code Council delayed the adoption of the 2021 construction codes until October of last year, and then again until March of this year, to consider additional modifications due to litigation and other actions that were going on surrounding the energy code and other parts of the code update. So that brings us to this evening. After the council repealed the initial adoption from last May, Mercer Island, along with all other jurisdictions within Washington State, are now required to adopt the 2021 construction codes no later than March 15th next month. The major component of the 2021 construction codes that have changed since your original action last May relates to the Energy Code. The Energy Code now provides a pathway to allow fossil fuel appliances with modified requirements, including higher energy efficiencies, additional energy credits, and providing for electrification readiness. The last substantive comment I'd like to make here is a forewarning of sorts that we may not have heard the last of the 2021 construction code cycle. The aforementioned Energy Code, as well as the Wildland Urban Interface Code, remain contentious, and depending on who you talk to on any given day, there still appears to be efforts out there that are ongoing to enact additional change. So we may be back at some point with something for you as part of this 2021 construction code update package. However, given the current required effective date of March 15th, as well as the Mercer Island Reporter's publishing deadlines, staff is recommending that Ordinance 24C-02, which is in your packet, be adopted for the 2021 construction code updates at first reading pursuant to City Council Rule Procedures 6.3 C3, thereby ensuring that the ordinance is published and takes effect by the mandated deadline of March 15th. So with that, Mayor, I'm going to turn it back over to you, and Don and Jeremy will be happy to answer all your questions.
Perfect, thank you. Councilmember Anderl.
Thanks for that presentation. I think I know the answer to both of these questions, but I have to ask. We've had some community feedback and input regarding some of the costs that these changes will drive into certain buildings and consumers. So the first question is, what do we absolutely have to do this under state law? And the second question is, what if we don't?
Good questions. Don and I just talked about this here just a day or so ago, or perhaps at the end of last week, about the costs. And Don, why don't you take the hot mic and give it a go?
Yeah, as far as the costs go, the state, part of their adoption process, they do an analysis of costs, so that's all available. They obviously the increased requirements increase the costs, and but the state has a whole analysis on that. And as far as the requirement to adopt, we are mandated to adopt the codes on March 15th.
And if we don't?
I have to defer to Bio on that. I'm assuming that we would be out of compliance with the state mandate. So I'm not sure what happens to that. Bio, would you have any input on that?
Well, the question is, what would happen if we don't adopt the?
Yeah, that's the question. I mean, I believe in my heart that we are required to do this. I understand that, but I am just really concerned about, the lack of local control, the continued push for, one size fits all, and lack of concern for impacts to individual community members with some of these changes.
So, we would be out of compliance with a statutory requirement, which would open the door for any building permit that we approve that's contrary to what's required to be subject to challenge in Superior Court, whether by proponents or opponents of the permit. So the immediate impact, other than, any kind of agency action by the building commission, the state building commission on the city, would be actually putting in each of our building application or building permit decisions subject to potential challenge in court.
Okay, thanks for that.
Deputy Mayor Rosenbaum.
I move that we adopt ordinance number 24C-02, amending MICC Chapter 17 with the updated additions of the construction codes to be effective on March 15th, 2024, as mandated by the state of Washington.
Second.
Okay, perfect. Moved by Deputy Mayor Rosenbaum, seconded by Councilmember Reynolds. Any discussion? Not seeing any. City Clerk, please call the roll.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Councilmember Reynolds.
Aye.
Mayor Neese.
Aye.
Councilmember Weinberg.
Aye.
Councilmember Andral.
Aye.
Councilmember Weicker. Looks like Councilmember Weicker had to step away. Deputy Mayor Rosenbaum.
Aye.
And Councilmember Jacobson.
Abstain.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Passes 5-0.
Okay.
5-0-1.
501. Thank you. Our next item of regular business is AB 6405, site concept for the Town Center Long-Term Regional Transit Commuter Parking Project. And we welcome Chief of Operations Jason Kittner and Senior Management Analyst Robbie Cunningham Adams. Welcome.
Good evening, Council. I'm getting my share screen here. Can you see the presentation?
We can.
Excellent. Again, my name is Robbie Cunningham Adams, Management Analyst with the City Manager's Office. I'll be driving the PowerPoint with Jason as support. Tonight, as you know, we'll be kind of previewing the site concept for the Town Center Long-Term Regional Transit Commuter Parking Project. First, though, I want to give a kind of quick background and reminder of the Sound Transit Settlement Agreement. We're going to review the 3 different parcels that combine to be the properties we're working with for this project. Staff have created some recommended objectives for this project. We'll preview the concept itself and some next steps, and we'll take some questions. So first, a review of the Sound Transit Settlement Agreement. Council, as you know, the city has a settlement agreement of Sound Transit when this agreement provides for the reimbursement of qualifying city projects up to $10 million. The city must submit these invoices for reimbursement by the end of 2025. The reimbursements from Sound Transit are split into several qualifying categories of projects, otherwise known as buckets. Some categories or buckets allow unused capacity to transfer to other sections or buckets. The various options for a commuter parking project affect the characteristic of the reimbursement we would receive from Sound Transit. But overall, city strategy will result in a full reimbursement of the whole Sound Transit settlement agreement. Diving into a little more detail here, listed on your screen is a table with the different sections of the variety of projects that qualify for reimbursement under the settlement agreement. Tonight, we're going to be focusing on the highlighted section in yellow, section 6, long-term parking. Under this section, the city is eligible for up to $4.4 million in reimbursement. I'll note, though, that this section functions a little differently than others. Rather than a straight reimbursement, this section is a 49-51 split of the costs of any projects between the city and Sound Transit. So I'll dive into that a little more here. The city is responsible for 51% of the project costs, with Sound Transit 49%. The city's strategy and intention is for our portion of the project to be achieved through a property match, meaning the value of the different parcels we've combined, and I'll talk about later in this presentation. The Sound Transit match will, on the other hand, be a cash reimbursement to the city's construction and property acquisition costs. Again, this capped at a little over $4.4 million. If, however, the commuter parking project has a total cost less than this amount, the remainder would be transferred to the traffic safety bucket of the Sound Transit settlement. Another unique thing about this section of Sound Transit agreement, unlike other parts of the settlement agreement, the reimbursement can only occur at the completion of a project. So we will not get iterative reimbursement over the course of construction and planning. It'll all come at once at the end. So let's take a look at just reviewing the former Tully's property and the different parcels that are part of it. As a reminder, this project consists of 3 different parcels. There's the Tully's site, which includes the former Tully's coffee shop and the parking lot associated with it. There's also a parcel known as A1, which includes the cul-de-sac of the former Sunset Highway. And there's the A2 parcel that the city purchased from WashDOT a few years ago. Parcels A1 and A2 include portions of the green space that are part of the Greta Hatchett Outdoor Sculpture Gallery, which is a part of Aubrey Davis Park. So let's focus in on each different parcel, starting with the former Tully's property. The city owns this property. We purchased it in 2019 for $2 million using REIT 1 funds. It's a little over 12,000 square feet, includes a dilapidated building, which is the actual former coffee shop, and depending on how you count it, about plus or minus 12 parking spaces. The parcel is nearly 100% impervious surface, and the site is contaminated. The the city negotiated a settlement agreement with BP Arco, a previous user and owner, which would cover most of any future cleanup costs. Moving on to parcel A1. This is also city-owned property, but it's city-owned right-of-way. It's a little over 15,000 square feet. This is a parcel that is city-owned as a part of the old turnback agreements after I-90 was constructed. Right-of-way means its use is restricted for only transportation or transportation-related purposes. And as a condition of the Sound Transit Settlement Agreement, the state legislature approved a budget proviso allowing for commuter parking as a use on this property. The city does currently have parking spots available in the cul-de-sac, it's public parking with 4-hour limits. Again, another view of the parcel in relation to the other three. And finally, parcel A2, again, a property that the city owns outright. It's a smaller property though, a little over 3,600 square feet. It was purchased by the city from WashDOT for $668,000 in 2021, again, using REIT 1 funds. The appraised value of this site is $660,000 as of January 2021. And in this project, as we'll see in the concept later, we anticipate using the parcel A2 for stormwater management. We will do so while maintaining the green space on top of it. Any infrastructure would be subsurface. So these properties together is a property assemblage. We kind of think of this project as using all three of these parcels so we have a total of a little under 32,000 square feet available. We spent $2.6 million of funding to acquire A2 and the Tully site. And the city in May of 2020 had the value of the combined Tully site A1, as one parcel together, appraised at a value of $6.4 million. And again, that is a part of the property match strategy that we would use with our 51-49 split with Sound Transit. So with this project, what are the objectives? What is the kind of situation on the ground, and what do we want to see out of a project here? First, a kind of an overview of what are the current conditions of the former Tully's property. It's in not great shape. The parking lot is in poor condition. It does not meet city code. The site, as we discussed, is environmentally contaminated to its previous use as a gas station and an auto repair shop. The building is stripped and inoperable. Most of the components of the building have failed or at the end of their useful life. While the city is currently using the building as transitional storage to the closure of City Hall, staff are working on cleaning out and fully abandoning the building. Council, I'll note, the city and staff did evaluate whether the building could be used as a satellite city facility, but determined the building is too poorly sited and it just prevents the efficient use of the property. Furthermore, estimated costs to repair the existing building far exceed the cost of replacing it with a new building. On your screen, your council is just a kind of a satellite image of what is the current kind of situation. So it shows the parking. I want to highlight the Tully's building itself is shaped awkwardly. You can access some parking spots from Sunset Highway, others from Southeast 27th. There's 2 driveway aprons. It's just an awkwardly kind of shaped and aligned property assemblage. So what do we want to do? What are our objectives for this property? We have several. First off, we want to align with the Sound Transit Settlement Agreement, which means a provision of commuter parking spaces adjacent to the upcoming Sound Transit light rail station. And we want these parking spaces to be easy and convenient parking options for Mercer Islanders. Additionally, we want this to be a flexible parking program. This flexible public parking facility can support town center businesses during the non-commute hours. We want to improve aesthetics. The building property and the building itself and the parking lot are an eyesore. They're not great shape. We want to address these derelict property conditions. We want to remove any unnecessary hardscapes and impervious surfaces. And we want to improve the overall aesthetics at what we've been kind of calling the gateway to town center. We want to improve safety and accessibility by reducing the current traffic flow onto Southeast 27th Street to 1 driveway apron instead of 2. This will improve safety and traffic flow and streamline ingress and egress. We want to ensure that the commuter parking project site is safe and accessible to pedestrians and bicycle connections. to and from the parking lot and the nearby trail and sidewalks. We want this project to protect green space and deploy sustainable design initiatives. We're going to propose a parking configuration that is efficient, maximizes use of space while minimizing impact to the adjacent park. Excuse me. This project will have no net loss of green space, will improve landscaping, trail connections, and accessibility. While the initial scope of this project does not include EV chargers, we want to make sure that we're ready for the future. So this project will include infrastructure to support future addition of EV charging stations, for example, conduit and all the electrical hookups that we could add, additional EV chargers in the future if we wanted to. And we're going to explore sustainable design alternatives that treat the stormwater runoff. And finally, we want to support multimodal transportation options in the city. We're going to provide additional amenities to the commuter parking stalls, such as bike lockers, bike racks, picnic tables, and benches to activate the property. Like I said earlier, we really do view this as a gateway to town center. It's a very beautiful entrance to the city, and we want to maintain that, but also fix some of the current conditions that don't really align with this being like a gateway property to be proud of. And it's a key link in the city's park and trail network. So now I want to kind of give an overview of the project site concept for our commuter parking project. City manager and staff have developed a preferred site concept for town center long-term regional transit commuter parking. This preferred site aligns with the objectives described previously. The project will reconfigure and replace the existing parking lot. It will include approximately 40 parking stalls compared to about 12 today. It's going to include bike lockers, bike racks, other amenities. This project will have no net loss of green space. The concept actually increases total green space and reduces total hardscape and impervious surface. Tonight, Council, the city manager, I guess, or myself and Jason, are seeking approval for the preferred site concept, and upon receiving that direction from Council, we'll finalize the design. So on your screen now is showing the kind of initial site concept. We're not yet at 30% design. This is just the general idea of what we're hoping to achieve. So you can see in this project that we are reducing that kind of ingress-egress to a single driveway apron onto Southeast 27th. We're adding additional parking spaces. We are removing the former Tolley's building, and we're removing the impervious hardscape former parking lot around the Tolley's building. We're providing trail connections to the sidewalks, to the I-90 trail, and we're adding bike parking and lockers. Now we have, space for ADA stalls. We have different size, compact and standard size parking stalls. I want to focus too a little bit on the next slide. This is how, one of our objectives is no net loss of impervious green space. And while this site concept does include some conversion of green space to parking stalls, we match and even exceed conversion of existing hardscape and streetscape back to green park space. So the orange shape kind of highlights the parking stalls being added, conversion of green space, but the kind of half moon shape you're seeing in the green there, that's the kind of that would be the former cul-de-sac portion. That will be the pavement removed, that will be added as new park space. And those two certainly net each other out. In addition to that, in the area that is formerly the former Tolley's coffee shop building and the associated parking lot, that hardscape will be removed. We'll add new landscaping for a significant increase in total green space and landscaping. And this concept is showing exactly 41 commuter parking stalls. Obviously, as the design process, we'll see where that ends up. But so we'll come back to the designs with questions at the end. I want to talk about costs. With council approval of the sign concept is needed to proceed with design and development of an engineer's cost estimate. Once that is complete, staff will return to the City Council in Q2 of 2024 to review the project cost estimate and the reimbursement scenario under the Sound Transit Settlement Agreement. Council, you have already included $500,000 in the 2023-2024 budget to repair and repurpose the former Tolley's building as a satellite city facility. Those funds will instead be utilized for this project. Generally, the cost for surface parking lot construction only, based on current market conditions, is about $4,000 to $5,000 per stall. However, there's a significant additional project cost to consider as well, including the demolition of the former Tolley's building, removal of hardscapes, new site landscaping, stormwater treatment, utility connections, lighting, amenities, and soft costs. In addition to that, there's obviously the former Tully site is contaminated, the soil is contaminated. There's potential soil mitigation costs that are currently unknown, but will be funded under the terms of the BP ARCO settlement agreement, which would fund the majority of the costs of that, any mitigation that may be necessary. Council, I want to point your attention to kind of an operational issue we'll need to think about. The former Tully's property in the red outline shape on your screen is private property, even though it is owned by the city. Police cannot enforce parking regulations on private property. Parcel A1, on the other hand, is right of way, so police can enforce on this parcel, the blue shape you're seeing. We could, on private property, contract with a private parking management firm to enforce parking on the former Tully site. I think for obvious reasons that is not operationally ideal. And this is one of the reasons why we as staff want to recommend converting some of the space in the project to right of way. So forgive the simple graphic here. I just wanted to illustrate, the kind of the draft what we're thinking here. Staff recommend converting areas of the proposed commuter parking project designed for vehicle access and parking to right-of-way in blue to allow parking regulation enforcement by MIPD. So if you see on the screen here, the purple line, the kind of area below the purple line, to the lower blue line, this sort of spoon shape, I'll call it, that is the area that would likely be converted to right-of-way. So we are covering all of the parking stalls and the kind of ingress and egress of their parking lot itself. The red shape would remain under its current, it would remain as private property. So this section below the purple line would join the existing A1 parcel that is already right-of-way. Council, upon receiving your direction and approval of the commuter parking project concept, staff will also prepare the materials necessary to dedicate certain parking lot areas as right-of-way, as I just discussed, probably with a more detailed map of the exact kind of coordinates of what we're converting. And this work item is anticipated for Q2 of this year. Council, some additional next steps. Staff, upon approval, staff will proceed with design and prepare the engineer's cost estimate. We'll return to you in Q2 of this year to review project costs and the city's anticipated reimbursement under the 4951 Sound Transit Settlement Agreement split. Council knows timeline, we anticipate project bidding to be in Q3 or Q4 of this year with construction to immediately follow. Staff will also begin to work on drafting parking regulations and the enforcement policy needed to operationalize the new parking facility, which will include code amendments. This work is also anticipated for the end of this year. And finally, I think the working title we have of Town Center Long-Term Commuter Parking is quite a mouthful. And so the city manager does also recommend that we name this public property, and we will undertake that conversation with you at the end of this year. With that, that's the end of my presentation. Happy to take questions.
Thank you. It looks like first questions from Councilmember Anderall, if we haven't lost her. There she is.
Hi, I'm having some issues getting my computer plugged in to charge the battery. So let me make sure I've got enough battery to go. And so why don't you take the next person in line?
Okay. Councilmember Reynolds.
I've forgotten the term that you used. I think it was flexible parking when you were talking about it during non-commute hours. It seems to me right now, this will probably change in the future, but the park and ride is not ever full anymore in the post-COVID era. Do people in the lot, will it have to be commuters during commute hours, or could we use it for commercial and, shoppers, et cetera?
Theo's jumping on, I'll let him go.
Councilmember Reynolds, yes, during commute hours, they have to be dedicated for long-term regional transit service commuters for the long-term regional transit. So basically, light rail needs to be dedicated for that or for connecting bus services.
So how will we know?
Well, we do, that's why we have to have parking regulations as part of the plan here, where we would come up with a way that we ensure that, parking is in that area. That section is reserved for commuter parking.
So if somebody parked and walked off, you could ticket them at that point saying you need to be heading to the bus station?
We could set up, permit parking for designated time during the commute hours, permit parking, and all the vehicles parked there need to have a decal.
Okay, thank you.
All right, Councilmember Anderall.
Thanks. Yeah, I have some real concerns with this whole plan, honestly. And I don't even know if I can begin to list them right now, but among others are tearing up existing park space to pave it, tearing up existing paved area to create park space just seems like a bad approach. Dividing the existing Greta Hackett Sculpture Park from other parkland with a huge parking lot doesn't seem super friendly to the community to me. What about future uses of this property? We were talking about potentially staging a police precinct there once Sound Transit arrives. I apologize if I didn't study this plan carefully enough prior to tonight's meeting. I will own that, to not have these questions ready ahead of time, but boy, I don't feel ready to go ahead with this for all those reasons.
Okay. Anyone else?
And there were some questions in there. If Robbie wants to respond, please let him, but yeah.
Yes, let me go through your questions. One, we do, through the Sound Transit settlement agreement, we do to fulfill the requirements for that agreement, we need to provide commuter parking in some way. I will say this iteration, while we're happy to, we're welcome to input on how to change design or what would be the preferred direction of council. Building a surface parking lot certainly does not preclude the city at a future date to use the property in a different way. I suspect I missed another one of your questions in there, Councilmember Anderall.
Well, it was just the kind of part of it was the concept of, paving over existing parkland to create parking and ripping up paved land to create parkland and dividing the existing sculpture park from a kind of a park-ish area with the big parking lot. I mean, it just conceptually didn't make any sense to me. So, and I get the whole public-private ownership and whether you can enforce the parking regulations, but beyond that, are there any policy or design reasons to do it that way?
Yeah, one of our objectives in this project was to ensure there's no net loss of green space, and certainly as designed, that does involve kind of a swap, the way you described. We're balancing having an adequate number of parking stalls. We're balancing designing it in a way that it's sort of a simple design in ingress and egress, but we design it at your direction, so open to council's feedback on if there's anything you would like to change in it. We're at the exact right spot in the project to consider design elements.
Okay. Yeah, well, and so I guess, there's other people waiting in line, so I'll just, I'll raise my hand again and take another turn after other people have gone.
Very good. Deputy Mayor Rosenbaum.
Yeah, Rob, you might not be far along enough in the design to give me an answer here, but you'd mentioned trying to activate some of the space with outdoor seating. I think there was a bench and a picnic table. Will that go in the Tully, what is currently the Tully space, or are we sort of still figuring all that out?
Yeah, it's a good question, Deputy Mayor. Obviously, we're at the design point where we can dream a lot of different situations. And so certainly something to consider is cost. And so is the landscaping in the kind of the space in the former Tully space going to be, lots of benches and picnic space and ornate landscaping, or is it grass? And so that's a cost consideration and a goal consideration. That's where I imagine a lot of that kind of activation space would go, while also preserving that space should there'd be another intended use for it down the line. Certainly on the Greta Hatchett Park side, our goal would be to not, as much as possible, not mess with the existing landscaping and park space that's there. Certainly we're adding in this design, new space where the existing cul-de-sac is, and we'd be open to a variety of ways to either match that landscaping or trees with what's in the rest of the park, or a bench could certainly go there, perhaps a bench on the kind of walkway access points to the trail system. We're very early in the process, so we're open to any of those ideas.
Very good. Thank you. Councilmember Jacobson.
Thank you. I have looked at this with a considerable degree of care, and I think it represents several opportunities for us. Opportunity number one is to add to the parking in downtown, and whether that is parking commuters who would otherwise park on streets, I'll leave up to others to speculate upon. But it adds parking, and that's something that I think most of our businesses, and I recently talked with two business owners and one property owner who agreed that every parking space that's added in downtown is potentially advantageous to the businesses. Now, would that be used for business parking? Well, maybe we have to do the regulations for it. I think a second opportunity is it's going to take an area that particularly when viewed from the 27th, will be considerably improved, both in terms of landscaping and in terms of getting rid of that building, the old Tully's building, which is a candidate to be the contents of a landfill and nothing more. I think we also take advantage of the opportunity of our agreement with South Transit, which doesn't go on forever. And I think that acting promptly at this point in time is in the city's best interest. Is the design perfect? Well, no design is ever perfect, but it will provide a resource or an asset we don't currently have without really diminishing any of the existing assets because of the swapping of existing hardscapes for landscaped areas. So I think it's the time to proceed with this and to proceed with dispatch, and I'm prepared to make a motion to that effect, Mr. Mayor.
Feel free.
Can I make it?
Sure.
I move that we authorize the city manager to proceed with the design as shown in Exhibits 1 and 2 to AB 6405 in terms of for the design and subsequent construction of this project. Do you need that again, City Clerk?
Councilmember Jacobson, I captured authorize the city manager to proceed with the design as shown in AB 6405.
And proceed with construction.
Second.
Okay. Moved by Councilmember Jacobson, seconded by Councilmember Weinberg. Oh, yeah, I just want to make sure that the motion was captured.
Yes.
Did you want to speak to the motion and beyond what you already did?
Yes, I'll without repeating all of what I previously said, this is a real opportunity. And it takes us as a city for, not for anyone's blame, but a long time to go forward with projects and get things done. And we have the opportunity to get something, take advantage of this idle asset, if you want to think of it that way, and provide for both the short term and the long term, because until Sound Transit arrives, the need for commuter parking there may not be as great as it will be when Sound Transit arrives. However, it's close enough to downtown that people could use that. It can be, parking regulations can make it usable for that for shorter periods of time and that kind of thing. So I think it's a step forward. I think it's certainly a cost-effective step forward, and it's going to make that area of the city look better.
Thank you. Councilmember Weinberg.
So I'm strongly in support of this measure, or the motion. I think that there are lots of opportunities here, and the space that we're talking about is still there on the weekends and still there in the evenings when the commuters have gone home. So we should be thinking about other uses as well. Like there are annual events that happen on Sunset Highway, like the Art on Court, and it would be great to have space for food trucks. And we're going to be having irrigation there anyway for the landscaping. So having something that would enable a water tap for someone that wants to rent that. And same thing for electricity. If we're creating the conduits for electric vehicles, having some way for food trucks to rent, tap into electricity. And this is a gateway to our community. So there are opportunities to create artwork and sculpture here saying, welcome to Mercer Island. And we do need to be expedient on this. December 31st of 2025 is going to come faster than we think. But this is the right thing to do for business. It's the right thing to do for commuters. It's the right thing to do for the arts, and let's do it.
Councilmember Reynolds.
A little rusty on my parliamentary procedure here, but I wonder if Councilmember Jacobson would consider a friendly amendment to strike the last part about proceeding with construction, because my understanding was the proposal was original proposal the city manager was asking for was to approve the design, and that they were going to come back with a construction cost estimate, and I don't feel like it's appropriate to approve construction when we don't know what it will cost.
Agreed, and I'll strike that construction. That does not need a second according to my reading of parliamentary procedure.
Are we replacing construction with design as in the recommended motion, or are we just
I
striking?
thought the original motion said to proceed with design in accordance with exhibits 1 and 2.
And then you had added and proceed with construction. I'm just saying we should take that out.
What I'm
Yeah.
saying is I'm willing to strike that, and with my willingness to strike that, it goes away without second. Doesn't need a second. Doesn't need a vote.
The second agrees for what it's worth.
Do you want to read the motion for the record?
Yes, the motion I currently have is authorize the city manager to proceed with the design as shown in AB 6405.
Okay. And then I just have one question, if I may. Robbie, I thought that Councilmember Andrel had a good point when she talked about the strange inconsistency of tearing up pavement to build green space and tearing up green space to build pavement. Did you look at a design where you didn't do that and kept the existing pavement and the existing green space? And how many parking spaces could we have if we did that?
We considered a variety of designs. One challenge I'll note, Councilmember Reynolds, is the existing cul-de-sac, the kind of rounded edge of it is a little difficult to work with to make a kind of narrow and efficient kind of layout of the parking spaces. And so by removing that, you are, I guess by default, adding a little more extra park space on the top there. There are certainly conversations we could have on the number of parking stalls and therefore the number of parking stalls that are being required to convert green space to parking stalls. Obviously, it's a balance between the amount of parking and space provided and impacts the park. So we settled on one that was efficient. It used the space in a way that minimized the need to use park space and also maximize the ability to use the former Tully site to remove those hardscapes and to add landscaping there. We really wanted a design that did a single driveway apron onto Southeast 27th. So with all that, we kind of came to this as the best of balancing of all worlds. I'm happy with it the way it is, but up to council's direction on that. We certainly could have discussions on the removing parking spaces on the top end. I want to make sure, though, we're still able to use the full 3 parcels, including A2, because that will be a needed element of getting that property purchase reimbursed by Sound Transit.
Thank you.
Okay, Councilmember Andrel.
Okay, thanks. This has been a very helpful discussion, and I really appreciate it. At the risk of minimizing the pitchforks and torches, can you just say for the record, there's no net loss of green space? Is there a net gain? What is the square footage trade-off?
Yeah, let me pull up that graphic again. sure I'm in the view that's best for you all. All right, are you able to see my screen again?
I can.
Yeah, so the orange area, as pictured here, would be these parking stalls. The orange shape would be a removal of 2,022 gross square feet of green space converted to parking stalls of right-of-way.
Okay.
I guess I'll call it a half moon shape. That includes 2,100 square foot of added green space, directly connected to the park space. And so obviously that's another 80 square feet added. I'll add that this is not even 30% design. And so certainly we would endeavor that no matter what, this will be at a minimum, the exchange of these two would be a zero, a complete, no net loss of green space. In addition to that, the green trapezoid space on the former Tully site, that is not currently a park space per se or connected to the sculpture park, so we wanted to differentiate it. But as shown here, that would be about 8,200 of additional. So is that landscaping? Is that benches and shrubbery and the like? Obviously, that's still to be determined. But that would be so you could think of this as an addition of several thousand of square feet of green space. But if you were to specifically look at it as just how the total net effect on Greta Hatchett Sculpture Park and Aubrey Davis Park as shown to be a slight addition of park space overall at this stage of design.
Okay, and so just to be 100% clear, so the total green space converted 2022, total new 2,102. So what's my math? 80 square feet.
Yep.
Yeah. And then the 8,234 square feet is not guaranteed to stay green space forever. I mean, if we decided we needed a police precinct there or, a hospital or whatever, that could go. But we would still not have lost any green space from where we are today.
Exactly correct, Councilmember Anderall. I think that was an intention of that space is not currently designated as a park. Perhaps council would choose to do that someday, but you're correct. Council could also perhaps choose to use that space for some sort of future use. And so that's, again, one of the reasons why we wanted to think of that separately from the conversion above. And any design we would do would ensure that the two kind of shapes on the top there would at the very least net out, but hopefully add green space.
Okay, sure. That all helps with my decision. And thank you very much. I appreciate your indulgence and the time.
Oh, happy to.
Okay, Councilmember Jacobson.
Just one other thing. The condition of the pavement on the existing Tully site is poor. It would need to be redone, and the shape of that site and its size is not conducive to, very conducive to parking. And at least when I spoke with the operations manager about this some time ago, the idea of having two separate entrances was undesirable for a number of kinds of reasons, not the least of which if the parking were partially full, getting somebody to turn around, they might have to back out into 27th, which was not a good idea, since that's a major east-west arterial there. So, at any rate, that's
very well. Councilmember Anderall, is that old hand?
Thought I took it down, but yes,
No worries.
it is.
All right. I'm not seeing any more discussion, so I think we're ready to call the roll.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Councilmember Jacobson.
Aye.
Deputy Mayor Rosenbaum.
Aye.
Councilmember Reynolds.
Aye.
Councilmember Weicker is still absent. Councilmember Anderall.
Now, aye.
Councilmember Weinberg.
Aye.
And Mayor Neese.
Aye.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
All right, motion passes. We now move to other business in the planning schedule, and we welcome Chief of Operations, Allie Speets. Are you Chief of Operations?
No, I was just going to say thanks for the
I was thinking
promotion.
It's a promotion.
City Council, we have your planning session coming up on March 1st. And that will be all day here at the Community Center. We will have the packet materials out to you and posted on the website Friday. And then we will turn around pretty quickly in a few days and have another council meeting with you on March 5th.
Sounds
And
good.
that's about it.
All right, council, any upcoming council member absences to report? Nope, not seeing any. All right, we move to council member reports. Deputy Mayor Rosenbaum, anything to report?
Yeah, last week was a busy one. We had the PTA council met, and that was interesting. They're talking about some interesting ways to sort of streamline some fundraising and get folks on the same page. And then that night, the PIC met, Sound Cities Public Issues Committee. There was a very lively conversation about the future of KCRHA. And then the PTA Advocacy Committee met on Friday. And there's some conversation about what they're working on in terms of Olympia. I also want to give a big shout out to the whole team that worked on the breakfast. Believe it or not, that was only 2 weeks ago. And that was just incredible. The YFS breakfast that was earlier this month. We were obviously here the night before, but to see the room filled the next morning was just very powerful. It's always a tremendous reminder of how lucky we are to live in this community and the way that everyone shows up to help out other folks in the community. But it's always inspirational, and I think also a big testament to the work that's done by YFS and all the staff and the team members that are there. So thank you.
Very good. I have nothing to report. Councilmember Weicker is still gone. Gets us to Councilmember Weinberg.
Nothing to report, thanks.
Okay. Councilmember Reynolds?
A few things, try to be quick. First off, the Parks Commission had their joint meeting with the Planning Commission, getting queued up for the park zone. I think that was mentioned during City Manager's report, but I'll also note they're going to bi-weekly meetings now to try to speed up the progress on that. And that, from what I understand, the first meeting in March is going to be an in-person meeting, which will be the first time that group has met in person in quite some time. Kind of a big deal. Secondly, I agree with Councilmember Deputy Mayor Rosenbaum. The YFS breakfast seems like it was just the other day. Lucky you get a chance to go again, because on March 14th, the Seattle Universal Math Museum is holding an event, a breakfast at the Mercer Island Community and Event Center. And this is to celebrate Pi Day, of course, it being March 14th. So I hope any and all of you would be welcome, and members of the community, I hope to see you there. Last thing I'll mention is that I also testified again before the legislature this week, yesterday, on engrossed Senate House Bill, whatever the term is, former House Bill 2021 that is now in the Senate. In this case, I was testifying again as an individual and not as a council member, but because it is relevant, I'll mention it here. What this bill would do is allow for the first time the Washington State Patrol to destroy firearms that are confiscated and that can't be, or where their rightful owners cannot be determined. Currently, they're required to sell those guns at auction, and this would allow them the option of destroying them. And it would also mandate destruction of any firearms that were purchased during gun buyback programs, unless there were situations where they were antique firearms that had historical value, or they were identified as stolen weapons that could be returned to their rightful owners. So I think those are both important public safety measures, and I was be happy to take any questions if anybody wants to learn more about those. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, Councilmember Andron, anything to report?
Yeah, I just want to thank everybody who attended the breakfast. It was wonderful. I was disappointed that there were so many people there that I couldn't actually converse with my table mates because the din was so loud, but it was fun. It was a great time, and it was an amazing fundraising event. The other thing I would point out, I don't report on this very often, but I am there's like 7,000 of us who are liaisons to the WRIA 8 Salmon Recovery Council. And it's very interesting to listen to the impacts of climate change and the impacts of development and the impacts of the shading of certain areas and how that all, and the warming of waters and how that all affects the salmon recovery. There's a pretty good article in the Seattle Times within the last week about warming Lake Washington and how that is affecting salmon, which is kind of an overview of what the Salmon Recovery Council is working on. So if anybody's interested in that, I can either send them a link, or you can go on the Seattle Times website and look for it. But it's interesting stuff and good and concerning work that the Salmon Recovery Council is doing, and other nonprofits and organizations within the region are doing to help maintain the population, to help a good, healthy fish population in the area.
Thanks for that. Councilmember Jacobson.
The utility board met a week before last, and the meeting itself was dealt almost exclusively with procedural kinds of issues, new meetings and what the schedule of events that those reporting to the utility board will be doing during the rest of this year. The one thing of importance that I was asked to raise is that one of the members of the utility board has resigned, and so if anyone knows of anyone who is interested in becoming involved in that, who particularly people who have some technical background in engineering and that kind of thing, please encourage them to apply for that position and to contact the head of the utility board, Mr. Connell, and to express their candidacy, because this is a very important service that's done for the community, and having community members who are conscientious and knowledgeable is a real benefit to that board.
Excellent. Great reminder. All right. The next hybrid meeting of the City Council is scheduled for Tuesday, March 5th, 2024 at 5 p.m. The time is now 8:06 p.m. The City Council will go into executive session for approximately 60 minutes to discuss with legal counsel pending or potential litigation pursuant to RCW 42.30.110, paren 1, close paren, little I, close paren, and to consider the selection of a site or the acquisition of real estate by lease or purchase when public knowledge regarding such consideration would cause a likelihood of increased price pursuant to RCW 42.30.110, paren 1, close paren, little b, close paren. No action will be taken following the executive session. As a reminder, the council, please stay seated until the city staff has terminated the broadcast. Good evening, and thanks for joining us tonight.